In a chaotic world, the only surviving humans have lived surrounded by walls for centuries, a self-imposed prison to protect themselves from titans, colossal, fast, and savage creatures that devour humans in the blink of an eye. Against beings of such power, no human would be capable of facing them. Not even the most advanced combat tools can manage it. However, you can claim many things about humans, that they are weak, lazy, selfish, but you cannot deny their creativity. To fight back head-on, humans use devices that make them just as fast as the titans, grabbing onto buildings and flying through the air as if performing a kind of dance. Even though this nearly levels the playing field, there is still an even greater disadvantage. Within the diversity of titans, there are some that are even more powerful and colossal than the ordinary ones. In this mysterious world, every day survived is a victory. But for Eren, merely surviving is just a step. The complete freedom of humanity is his dream, to know the world, to eliminate the titans. Let us explore the mysterious world of Attack on Titan and its secrets. In a mega recap of Attack on Titan, Shingeki no Kyojin, one of the best anime and manga ever produced in history. It is impossible to watch this work and not become a fan. But look, as you can imagine, this recap took a great deal of work. It was days and days of scripting, rewatching, recording, and editing. But for this work, all that effort is worth it. If you can leave a like, a comment on the video supporting my work, it helps a lot. Comment on who your favorite character is, and let us get to the recap. Beginning, Eren Yeager, a boy who wakes from a strange and disturbing dream. His adoptive sister Mikasa calls him back home and notices he is crying, but Eren cannot explain why. It is the year 845 in the Shingeki district. While a priest preaches about the sanctity of the walls, Eren and Mikasa carry firewood and come across Hannes, a soldier who, despite being on guard duty, reeks of alcohol. Eren is irritated by his irresponsibility and that of the other guards, who mock the boy for believing that one day the walls could be breached. For Eren, living locked away like cattle is not freedom, and this fuels his desire to join the Survey Corps, something that worries Mikasa. The city bell announces the return of the explorers, and Eren runs to see them. However, what he finds is not a victorious group, but rather exhausted, wounded, and defeated soldiers. A mother cries for her dead son, and the captain admits through tears that there has been no progress at all in the missions. When a man insults the scouts, Eren attacks him, but Mikasa holds him back. For her, that scene should make Eren reconsider his decision, but he remains determined. Back home, Mikasa reveals to Eren's adoptive parents his desire to join the Corps. Dr. Yeager is surprised, but understands his son's curiosity and promises to speak with him later about the secrets kept in his basement. His mother Carla tries to convince him to give up, worried about the dangers beyond the walls. Furious, Eren runs away, and Mikasa is tasked with looking after him. Meanwhile, Armin, Eren's friend, is beaten up by bullies for expressing his desire to explore the outside world, something considered absurd. He believes the peace inside the walls will not last forever, and that humanity needs to expand. Before the conversation continues, a deafening bolt strikes the wall. To everyone's shock, the head of a colossal titan appears above the 50-meter height, opening a gigantic breach by kicking the gate. The Shingeki district is thrown into chaos. Eren and Mikasa run home only to find their mother trapped under the rubble. Desperate, they try to save her, but Carla pleads for them to flee. At that moment, Hannes appears and promises to face the Titan, but when confronted with the monstrosity before him, he backs down, powerless, and only manages to save the children. Eren watches through tears as his mother is devoured alive before his eyes. The story then reveals the dark past. More than a century ago, Titans appeared out of nowhere and nearly drove humanity to extinction. All that remained was the population inside the walls, living in a false sense of security until that fateful day. Shingeki plunges into panic. People flee, others are devoured without mercy. Even the priest who preached about the sanctity of the walls is swallowed by a Titan. Eren, consumed by rage and helplessness, turns on Hannes for not saving his mother. But the soldier admits through tears that he too lacked the courage or strength to fight. The district is destroyed before their eyes, and the tragedy marks the beginning of Eren's fight against the Titans. After the attack, citizens tried to escape by boat to the next inner wall. The Shingeki district, because it projected beyond the main walls, was more vulnerable, but at the same time made evacuation easier. Armin, already inside a boat, sees Eren and Mikasa arriving, both still in shock from the horror they witnessed. When the guards begin to close the gates to contain the Titans, a thunderous boom announces the arrival of a new threat, the armored Titan. He charges at full speed toward the wall, smashing through it before it could close, hurling soldiers into the air and opening another passage for the monsters. The fall of Shingeki and the destruction of Wall Maria soon spread across the country. Humanity is hunted once again. Eren watches the scene in despair, realizing he will never see his home again, and blames himself for having argued with his mother before losing her. Consumed by rage, he swears he will exterminate all the Titans. That same year, more than 10,000 people died. The government orders a general withdrawal behind Wall Rose. Meanwhile, Dr. Yeager runs desperately in search of his family, fearing the worst. Later, Eren wakes from a strange dream, in which his father injects him with something and insists he never forget the key. Frightened, he wakes and sees the object hanging around his neck, quickly hiding it under his shirt. Alongside the other refugees, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin receive bread as rations. A guard mocks them, saying there is not enough food, and Eren tries to react but is held back by his friends. Armin reminds him that fighting the Titans now would be suicide, but Eren calls him weak. Mikasa, irritated, retorts, "If Armin is weak, then all of them are too, since they cannot even secure food." She then shoves the bread into Eren's mouth, recalling the promise she made to Carla to keep him safe. With hunger increasing, the refugees are sent to work on barren lands. The following year, 250,000 people were conscripted to retake Wall Maria. Fewer than 200 survived. Despite the tragedy, the operation served to ease the pressure of food scarcity. Eren, consumed by hatred, decides he will join the Survey Corps to grow stronger and defeat the Titans. Armin resolves to accompany him, and Mikasa, to protect him, does as well. 2 years later, in military training, the new recruits meet the strict Keith Shadis, who inspects the cadets with insults and punishments. Those who survived the Shingeki massacre are spared, as they have already proven their determination. Among the cadets is Jean Kirstein, who reveals he wants to join the military police and live comfortably behind the walls, which earns him Shadis's contempt. Another memorable moment occurs when Sasha Blouse is caught eating a stolen potato in plain formation. As punishment, she must run until nearly fainting. For her, the worst part was losing her dinner rights. That night, the cadets realize that deserters are sent to forced labor in the fields. In the dining hall, Eren draws attention by recounting that he came from Shingeki and describing how the colossal and armored titans destroyed the wall. When asked about ordinary titans, he feels the weight of the memory, but answers that with the omnidirectional mobility gear, they will be able to defeat them. Jean calls him crazy for wanting to risk himself outside the walls, but Eren retorts that hiding behind the military police is the act of a coward. They almost come to blows but end up shaking hands. Jean, however, becomes smitten with Mikasa until he discovers her closeness to Eren. The next day, ODM gear training begins. Many cadets, like Mikasa, adapt quickly, but Eren cannot even stay upright. Not even with help from Mikasa and Armin at night does he improve. At dinner, he feels discouraged but insists he will not give up. He asks Jean, Connie, Reiner, and Bertholdt for tips, but receives only mockery or vague answers. Bertholdt then asks why they still want to be soldiers after everything they have lived through. Armin answers that they cannot stand idle. Reiner and Bertholdt reveal that they too are survivors from the southern part of Wall Maria, but remember little of the attack. The four of them, united by this shared pain, exchange their reasons for fighting. Eren, firm, repeats his oath. He will eliminate all the Titans. Reiner encourages him, saying he will manage to pass the test. The next day, Eren is put to the test in the training field in front of all the cadets. The cables of his equipment are released and, although he manages to stay upright at first, he soon crashes headfirst to the ground. Even so, he insists on trying again. Instructor Shadis notices that the problem is not a lack of effort, but a defect in the equipment. After swapping the harness with another cadet, Eren finally manages to balance himself and pass the test. 2 years pass. During a forest exercise, the recruits march in the rain, carrying heavy equipment. When Armin begins falling behind, Reiner takes his backpack to help, but this only increases the boy's guilt, and he soon takes it back and runs to keep up with the others. Further along, they find Titan dummies scattered across the training field and take turns attacking the nape, those creatures' weak point. Shadis evaluates each one's performance. Armin is physically fragile but demonstrates great intelligence. Eren, despite starting poorly, shows enormous determination, and Mikasa stands out above everyone, proving herself an exceptional and unprecedented talent. Next, the cadets practice hand-to-hand combat in pairs. Eren questions the usefulness of this, since their enemies are giants, but Reiner reminds him that a soldier must be prepared for any situation. To prove his point, he sets Eren against Annie, who seems to not be taking the training seriously. However, Annie knocks him down with ease, just as she does with Reiner in the next round. For her, that type of training is useless, since only the top 10 cadets earn a place in the military police, considered the safest destination. Annie states that putting effort into that system is walking into a trap. Her words make Eren reflect on the true meaning of becoming a soldier. That night, Jean talks with Marco about his dream of living comfortably in the interior after joining the military police. Eren interrupts them, insisting that none of it will matter when the Titans attack again. He refuses to accept the idea of training only to run away. Irritated, he confronts Jean, but this time manages to control himself. Using a move learned from Annie, he throws Jean to the ground and provokes him for his selfish ambitions. Over time, 218 cadets graduate. They must choose between three paths: the garrison, responsible for defending the walls; the survey corps, which faces the Titans outside; or the military police, subordinate directly to the king and restricted to the top 10 students. Mikasa and Eren are among the best, but they surprise everyone by choosing the survey corps. When questioned, Eren admits that humanity is at a disadvantage, but believes the problem is a lack of information. He promises to fulfill his dream, to drive the Titans out of the walls and reclaim freedom. Jean, for his part, remains decided on joining the military police. Armin and Mikasa decide to follow Eren, even knowing the risks. On the first mission, Eren is surprised to see Connie and Sasha also joining the corps. Sasha even brings a piece of meat stolen from the kitchen, and they all make a promise to eat meat to their heart's content once humanity reclaims its territory. 5 years pass without incident until the colossal titan reappears before Eren, kicking the wall once more. He easily destroys the gate cannons, showing intelligence in his actions. Eren moves to confront him, advancing along the arm and back toward the nape, but the titan releases a curtain of steam that prevents him from landing the blow, disappearing shortly after. Frustrated, Eren is forced to fall back and report what happened. Meanwhile, civilians run in panic toward the evacuation points. The garrison organizes its defenses, aware that part of Wall Rose was never fully sealed after the last attack. Commander Pixis, responsible for the defense of the south, receives news of the fall of Trost. The nobleman Lord Wald begs him to protect his lands, but Pixis ignores his selfish pleas and focuses on the survival of the population. The strategy is organized. The vanguard faces the Titans head-on. The cadets provide support in the middle of the formation, and the elite troops stay at the rear. But the vanguard is already destroyed. The outer gate is broken through, and the Titans begin invading the city. Faced with the possibility of the armored Titan also breaking through the inner gate, the commander orders them to defend the walls and protect the civilians at any cost. Danjio, in despair, laments his luck. After all, he expected to be safe in the interior. Eren finds him and reminds him of the grueling training they have already survived. If they manage to get through the hell of training, they will manage to survive that day too. Mikasa asks Eren that if things get worse, he find her, even if they are in different squads. Before she can continue, her leader orders her to the rear. Eren reminds her of her duty as a soldier, but she only tells him not to die. He, however, ignores her. During training, the cadets learned that Titans possess no intelligence, nor the ability to reproduce. Their only instinct is to devour humans. They also discovered that even cannons are incapable of defeating them, since they regenerate quickly. The only way to kill a Titan is by striking the back of the neck. Convinced that this is the moment to strike back, Eren comments to Armin that this is the perfect time to counterattack. The squad of 6 charges toward the front line when the signal is given, but quickly realizes the entire vanguard has already been destroyed. The city is overrun by ordinary Titans. At that moment, an abnormal Titan appears and seizes Thomas, one of the team members. Eren, consumed by rage, charges off alone to attack, while his companions try to reach him. Along the way, a Titan bites off his leg, and 2 other comrades are devoured before everyone's eyes. Armin freezes, unable to react when a bearded Titan grabs him and prepares to devour him. In that instant, Eren remembers when Armin showed him a book about the world beyond the walls, vast seas, icy lands, and fields of snow. Recalling that dream, he stirs and, with one last effort, rescues Armin from the Titan's mouth, tossing him to the safety of a nearby rooftop. Shortly after, Eren is devoured before the terrified eyes of his friend. Armin, in shock, is found by Connie, who tries to bring him back to reality. One of the soldiers remarks that they are all already dead and that there is no more hope. Krista, indignant, cuts in, saying that there is no point in fighting since everyone is losing people they love. Armin apologizes and heads back to the rear, while Connie and his group push forward. In that moment, Armin understands the cruel truth of the world. The strong survive and the weak are devoured. He feels the weight of guilt and helplessness for having lost Eren, the one who always protected him. Further on, he finds Hannah desperately trying to resuscitate Franz, to no avail. Armin alerts her that Franz is already dead. He can bear the pain no longer. The evacuation is interrupted when merchants block the gates with their carts. At that moment, an abnormal titan charges toward the crowd, spreading panic. The elite troops try to stop it, but the one who manages to bring it down is Mikasa, striking its weak point. The titan falls before the population, but the merchant, instead of helping, demands that Mikasa give him orders. Furious, she threatens to kill him, and only then does he decide to open the gate. The population thanks her for her courage. Mikasa then recalls her past. In 8044, she lived peacefully with her parents in a mountain cabin. One day, Dr. Yeager visited the family, bringing Eren, but upon entering, he found Mikasa's parents dead. The girl had been kidnapped by traffickers who intended to sell her because she was a descendant of Orientals, extremely rare within the walls. Her mother, even more valuable for being a pure Oriental, was killed during the invasion. Hidden, Mikasa witnessed the horror. Meanwhile, Eren, waiting outside, decided to act. He entered the cabin pretending to be lost and, taking advantage of the distraction, attacked the bandits. He stabbed one and lured another into a trap. He freed Mikasa, but one enemy remained. When that man lunged at Eren, Mikasa, urged by him to fight back, reacted and killed him. It was in that moment that she understood the cruelty of life and awakened her survival instinct. When the police arrived, they were shocked to see what two children had done. Dr. Yeager scolded Eren for risking his own life, but understood it was the only way to save Mikasa. With nowhere to go, she was adopted by the Yeager family. Eren then gave her a scarf, promising she would never be cold again. Back in the present, Mikasa continues fighting and eliminating Titans, but receives orders to fall back. She refuses, determined to help the vanguard, believing she can overcome any obstacle while Eren is alive. Meanwhile, the officers debate whether to retreat to the next wall or risk helping the soldiers left without supplies. Mikasa realizes the warehouses have already been taken by the Titans. Inside, the soldiers of the supply unit are terrified, in hiding. One of them, overwhelmed by despair, points his weapon at himself, preferring to die rather than face the monsters. John and Connie's squad is cornered without enough gas to reach a safe location. Desperate, Connie suggests to John that they fight to the end rather than wait for death at the hands of the Titans, but John, dejected, does not believe the cadets stand a chance without the help of veterans. The mood is one of regret and helplessness. Sasha tries to cheer them up but fails, while Armin remains silent, lost in his thoughts. Nearby, Annie and Reiner's squad merely waits for the right moment to act. Marco, for his part, sinks into reflections on his own existence. Mikasa finds Armin in a state of shock and asks if he is alright. She is also looking for news of Eren, but Armin can only cry as he recalls how their comrades died courageously in combat. The other cadets begin to grasp the gravity of what he is saying and conclude that they may all share the same fate. Armin apologizes to Mikasa, but she, with an expressionless face, insists he get up. She then proposes a plan, return to headquarters to resupply. She offers to clear the way, stating that she is stronger than the others. Determined, she throws out the challenge, fight or die, and criticizes those who only watch without acting, calling them cowards. Jung complains, blaming Eren for her influence, but in the end asks everyone to follow her. Sasha joins in and reinforces Mikasa's words, motivating the other cadets to unite as well. Mikasa charges forward with fury, eliminating several Titans at impressive speed, but Armin notices she is consuming too much gas, driven only by rage and grief. Inevitably, Mikasa runs dry and falls, saved by Armin and Connie. At that moment, Jean takes command. Mikasa, on her knees, despairs as she once again feels the weight of losing her family. Behind her, a Titan approaches. With no gas, Jean's squad is also vulnerable in front of headquarters, which is blocked by Titans. Many are captured and Jean regrets having pushed forward. Convinced that her life with Eren has already been enough, Mikasa accepts the end and closes her eyes as a Titan is about to grab her. Even so, she fights back instinctively. She herself is surprised at not giving up. Even without a chance, she remains on her feet. At that instant, a strange titan appears behind her and attacks the one threatening her. It roars to the sky and defeats another titan before everyone. Mikasa watches, confused, while Armin arrives and takes her back to the rooftops. Together, they watch this abnormal titan fight in a coordinated manner against others of its kind, showing no interest in attacking humans. Armin swaps his gas tank with hers and asks her to be more careful this time. Mikasa recognizes her recklessness and promises not to leave him behind. It is then that Armin has a bold idea: to use the abnormal titan to their advantage. If it attacks other titans and ignores humans, they could lure it toward headquarters. Mikasa and Connie would handle the titans in the area, while the abnormal one would naturally advance in the desired direction. Connie thinks it is too risky, but Mikasa supports the plan and moves forward. Meanwhile, Jean sees his companions being devoured, but understands this is the decisive moment. He orders everyone to advance, taking advantage of the distraction and conserving gas. Mikasa fights alongside the abnormal titan, defeating the nearby enemies. Connie accompanies her, carrying Armin. Marco thanks Jean for his leadership, but the battle is far from over. Upon invading headquarters, they find the supply squad hiding. Jean explodes in fury, accusing them of cowardice, but they defend themselves by saying there was no other choice. The atmosphere grows heavier when another titan invades the building. However, the abnormal titan intervenes once more, destroying the enemies and saving the cadets. Mikasa, Armin, and Connie enter through the window just in time before running out of gas. Connie congratulates Armin for the plan and explains to the others how to make use of the strength of the allied titan. Surprisingly, everyone accepts the idea. Under Mikasa's leadership, the cadets find rifles inside headquarters and devise a new strategy: lure the titans toward the elevator and attack them from above, while the others finish them off below. Armin hesitates, unsure about the plan, but his comrades encourage him. The cadets descend in the elevator, ready for the risk. When the titans face them, they fire to blind them, opening the way for Mikasa and the others to deliver the final strikes. Nearly all the enemies are defeated, but one titan resists and charges at Sasha and Connie. At that moment, Mikasa and Annie intervene, eliminating it once and for all. Now that the depot is secure, with no enemies nearby, everyone can finally resupply. Marco comments to John that, despite considering his own weakness a flaw, it is precisely that which makes him a good leader, because it forces him to think of others and understand situations intelligently. He also acknowledges that he owes his life to John. With their ODM gear recharged, the group prepares to return to a protected location. From the top of a rooftop, Mikasa observes that some titans are devouring the abnormal titan they had encountered before. Reiner suggests they should save it, believing it could be essential to defeating the enemies. Jean considers the idea absurd, but Annie points out that perhaps that titan could be used as an ally or even as a weapon. At that moment, Armin realizes that the same titan that killed Thomas is approaching. The abnormal titan, even severely wounded and without limbs, manages to break free and advance to attack it. It screams, crashes to the ground, and begins to evaporate until it dies. It is then, to everyone's astonishment, that Eren emerges from the nape of the creature. Mikasa immediately runs to him, relieved to see him still alive. Meanwhile, the Tross district tallies the enormous losses after the Titan attack. The absence of the elite survey corps, which had departed on a mission early that morning, contributed to the disaster. Upon returning, Commander Erwin and Captain Levi are welcomed as heroes. The Corps' function is to explore the world beyond the walls in search of knowledge and expansion, but their expeditions still come at a high price. On average, 30% of soldiers do not return. This brutal disparity between humans and titans becomes evident on the battlefield, where Levi alone manages to eliminate several enemies. In one of the destroyed cities, he rescues a gravely wounded companion, but there is no way to save him. Levi assures him that he fulfilled his duty and promises to avenge his death by defeating the Titans. The man dies in peace, and Erwin orders an immediate withdrawal, suspecting the wall may have been compromised. Meanwhile, Eren relives the moment he was swallowed by the bearded Titan. Inside its stomach, he finds other desperate victims, including someone calling out for their mother, a memory that awakens his own pain. Driven by hatred, Eren swears to exterminate all the Titans. Suddenly, his arm bursts through the creature's mouth, and he transforms into a titan. Consumed by fury, he runs toward the nearest enemy and strikes it down without mercy. Later, Eren wakes in Armin's arms, surrounded by soldiers ready to attack him. Mikasa stands in front, protecting him, while Armin demands explanations. But Eren does not understand what happened, and notices the looks of fear and distrust around him. Inside Walrose, Connie and Krista recount how they managed to escape from Trust. They tried to volunteer but failed. When they question Joan and his group, they are met with silence, as everyone decided to keep secret what they saw happen to Eren. Hannes, now serving in the garrison, watches from the top of the wall. His colleagues ask if he worries about the 3 children he once saved, now cadets on the front line. He answers confidently that they will survive thanks to the strength they carry within them. Meanwhile, Eren's situation worsens. Captain Kitz orders that Eren, Mikasa, and Armin be executed with cannon fire, accusing them of treason. He asks Eren directly whether he is human or a Titan. Eren, confused, says he does not know, which only increases the suspicions. There are witnesses who swear they saw him emerge from inside a Titan, and many believe he is an infiltrated threat. Kitz, pressured by the fear of a new armored Titan attack, must act quickly. Mikasa steps forward and threatens to fight everyone if they touch Eren. A lieutenant confirms her ability, but Armin asks for calm, arguing that negotiation would be better. Eren, not quite remembering what happened in his Titan form, wonders if it was all just a dream. After all, his limbs have been restored. Even so, when Kitz presses him again, Eren answers firmly, "I am human." Even so, the captain orders fire and Mikasa runs to defend him. At that instant, Eren remembers the key on his necklace and his father's words about the basement of their old home, where answers would be found. Moved by the memory, he embraces his friends and, in a desperate act, partially transforms into a Titan to protect them. The impact is devastating. On the other side of the wall, Jean and the others hear the cannon shot, followed by thick smoke. They run to the location and are confronted with the stunning scene. Eren, amid the incomplete body of a Titan, managed to shield Mikasa and Armin, but the transformation is unstable and soon begins to fall apart. Kitz orders the cannons to reload. Inside the steam, Eren struggles to remain conscious, remembering again his father's basement and the secret that could change everything. He curses Gresha's silence, convinced that this information could have helped humanity. Mikasa interrupts him, saying this is not the time. Before the soldiers can attack again, Commander Pixis intervenes and grabs Kitz's arm. He praises Armin's courage, orders the troops to regroup, and declares he will hear the explanations of the 3 cadets. Eccentric and respected, Pixis takes control of the situation, reminding everyone that he is in charge of the southernmost and most important district. Pixis listens carefully as Eren speaks about his father's basement and how it could be the key to uncovering the secrets of the Titans. At that moment, Armin presents his idea, to use Eren's transformation power to lift the giant boulder and close the breach in Trost's wall. Pixis asks Eren directly whether he is truly capable of doing this. Without certainty, Eren admits his doubt, but promises to try, aware that thousands of lives depend on it. Convinced, the commander immediately organizes his troops to put the plan into action. Armin is surprised that his improvised strategy was accepted so quickly, but Eren remarks that Pixis probably acted in haste to prevent other military forces from interfering. Meanwhile, the cadets at Walrose learn of the plan. Many believe it is useless and will only result in more deaths. Daz falls into despair, saying he would rather die there than return to battle, which creates tension among the soldiers. Jean, for his part, overhears members of the garrison planning to flee. From the top of the wall, Pixis recalls a period when humanity only knew how to fight itself. Some believed that if a common, impossible-to-defeat enemy were to arise, wars among humans would cease, but, as he himself reflects, that is not the case now. Hannes watches the commander's movements with Eren and wonders what the 2 of them are planning. Back on the ground, Pixis gathers his demoralized troops and explains the mission in detail. Eren, presented as part of a human Titan experiment, must carry the boulder to the gate and seal the wall. While he attempts this feat, other soldiers must distract the Titans and protect him. Armin suggests a strategy: lure the Titans to another point on the wall, avoiding a direct confrontation and allowing only a small elite squad to defend Eren. But success depends entirely on his ability to control his Titan form. The news that Eren will be used in the plan shakes morale even further. Many soldiers begin to desert, frightened. Captain Kitz tries to stop them with threats, but Pixis steps in. He pardons those who do not want to fight and appeals to those who still have something to protect their families and humanity itself. He stresses that if the wall is not reclaimed, it will not be the Titans that end them, it will be humanity itself, fighting over food and space, that will decree their end. This speech motivates the soldiers to continue. Pixis then prepares the elite squad to escort Eren, Despite doubts about his powers, he admits it is a risky gamble, but that he has nothing left to lose. Armin apologizes to Eren for burdening him with this responsibility, but Eren assures him he trusts him. Mikasa insists on accompanying him, but Eren forbids it. Despite this, Ian Dietrich, the elite squad leader, recognizes her skill and accepts her on the team. Before they depart, Ian promises to protect Eren at any cost, and Rico Brzezinska reminds the young man that everyone there has dreams and are not mere disposable pieces. They soon notice there are few Titans at the southern gate, a sign that the distraction tactic worked. Upon approaching the boulder, Eren transforms into a Titan, but loses control. Instead of fulfilling his mission, he tries to attack Mikasa. Meanwhile, the distraction team manages to lure the Titans, but suffers heavy casualties. Pixis, seeing this, admits he essentially sent them to their deaths, but accepts the weight of that decision in the name of humanity's advancement. Eren attacks violently in Mikasa's direction, forcing Ian to order her to fall back. She, however, tries to communicate with him. When the situation seems lost, Rico launches the red flare, indicating failure. Eren ends up passing out after hitting his head inside his Titan form. Another group reports that more Titans are approaching, and Rico suggests aborting the mission. Mikasa, however, refuses to give up. Pixis, upon seeing the flare, does not give the retreat order, leaving the final choice to the elite squad. If they pull back now, all the deaths will have been in vain. The soldiers pressure Ian to abandon Eren, but he decides to hold out until the end. Even if it costs more lives, he believes it is worth fighting for this new hope. Rico still has doubts, but follows the plan. Mikasa thanks Ian for the decision, and he orders her to prepare to protect Eren. At that moment, she notices that Eren's Titan body is not regenerating as before. Inside his form, Eren loses consciousness and finds himself in a dream, at home with his parents and Mikasa, falling asleep amid the confusion. Armin manages to reach Eren, who is unconscious. Meanwhile, Jean and other cadets fight to hold back the Titans still wandering the streets. More enemies keep pouring through the gates, forcing Ian and his elite team to hold firm in defending Eren. Mikasa takes out 2 Titans, but new ones keep arriving, drawn by his presence. Armin, desperate, climbs on top of Eren's body and asks Mikasa what happened. She explains that he is not responding and that more Titans are approaching. With no other option, Armin cuts Eren on the nape to try to wake him. He asks Mikasa to step back while he insists Eren wake up, reminding him of the plan to drive out the Titans and avenge his mother. Trapped in a dream state, Eren sees his mother in a mundane scene, but his memories gradually return with force. At the same time, Jean runs into trouble. His ODM gear fails during the fight, forcing him to flee from a Titan. He hides in a building but continues to be chased until he finds the ODM gear of a dead soldier. Meanwhile, Armin keeps trying to bring Eren back, recalling their shared dream of exploring the world beyond the walls and discovering all the wonders they read about in books. Finally, Eren awakens. Jean tries to escape using the fallen soldier's gear, but the harness is defective. At that moment, Marco appears to distract the Titan, while Connie and Annie help him. Even so, the gear continues to malfunction, and Jean nearly dies before being saved by Annie. They manage to fall back to the wall. Meanwhile, Rico and her troops suffer heavy casualties against the growing number of Titans. Hope arrives when they see Eren in his Titan form, lifting the enormous boulder to seal the entrance. Armin runs to Mikasa to let her know he recovered. Ian orders everyone to protect Eren, even at the cost of their lives. The weight of the boulder nearly destroys Eren's body, but he remembers his friends risking everything as a decoy, and also thinks of his dream of being free beyond the walls. With that, he summons his strength and pushes forward. In the battle, Ian ends up killed, but Mikasa and Rico manage to clear the way for Eren, who finally lets out a roar and sets the boulder in the gate, sealing the wall. Rico, emotional, states that the deaths were not in vain and fires the yellow flare, marking the victory. Pixis sends reinforcements to rescue the survivors. Armin and Mikasa run toward Eren, but the Titans still advance. It is Levi who arrives to eliminate the last threats. Before losing consciousness, Eren catches a glimpse of the Survey Corps emblem on Levi's back. With the support of the garrison and the cannons, the remaining Titans in Trost are defeated. 2 are captured alive, but the price is steep, approximately 200 soldiers dead or missing, and another 900 wounded. Despite the victory, there is no mood for celebration. During the cleanup, Jean finds Marco's mangled body and is devastated, with no idea how he died. Nearby, Sasha discovers a pile of corpses regurgitated by a Titan. while Annie mourns a recent death and is reprimanded by Reiner, who reminds her of the need to press on. Later, Eren wakes in a cell, facing Commander Erwin and Captain Levi. Now in the custody of the military police, he is interrogated about the key on his necklace and his father's basement in Shiganshina, where the secrets of the Titans supposedly lie. Eren confirms the truth of this, but Levi remains suspicious. Erwin, on the other hand, wants to understand his intentions. To reclaim Shiganshina, it will be necessary to use his Titan power again. Eren reveals his desire to join the Survey Corps to defeat all the Titans, and Levi assumes responsibility for him. The news that a soldier can transform into a Titan quickly spreads, stirring unrest among the population. In Walsina, some fear that the inhabitants of the outer walls will try to invade their territories in search of resources. Those who are more oppressed see Eren as a hope for retaking Wall Maria. The military police begins to move to take possession of him, even if it means confronting the Survey Corps. Commander Erwin meets with Pixis to discuss the situation. Both know the decision will rest with Supreme Commander Darius Zackley, the supreme leader of the 3 regiments. Everything will depend on how he assesses Eren's presence. If considered useful, he could be used as a weapon. If seen as a threat, his execution will be immediate. Pixis fears this outcome, but recognizes that many still see Eren as a danger. Erwin, however, states that they have a plan, though nothing is guaranteed. As always, he will have to improvise in the face of the unknown. Eren is being kept under heavy guard. His guards treat him as though he were a monster, which bothers him, but he understands the reason for such caution. After all, at least they have not executed him yet. What truly worries him is how his friends will react, since they have never shown the same fear as the others. One day, Hange Zoe and Mike Zacharias, members of the Survey Corps, Hange does not reveal where he is going, but expresses confidence that Eren will be able to handle the situation. In the tribunal hall, packed with soldiers, commanders, and witnesses, Eren is brought in shackled to a stand. Among the audience, he spots his friends and superiors. Judge Darius Zackley conducts the trial, and since no precedent exists for a case like Eren's, his fate depends solely on Zackley's decision. The debate is urgent, as the population is already aware of everything and demands answers, otherwise there could be riots. The hearing quickly turns into a dispute between factions. The military police, backed by a priest from the Church of the Walls, demands Eren's immediate execution, treating him as a threat that must be eliminated. Erwin Smith, meanwhile, proposes that he be integrated into the Survey Corps, using his power to retake Wall Maria. Others present bring different points of view. A merchant suggests reinforcing the gates, while the priest insists that the walls are sacred and cannot be altered. Zackley interrogates Eren, who tries to convince him he can control his Titan power. However, he is reminded of the Trost incident, where he apparently threatened Mikasa. After transforming, reluctantly, Mikasa confirms what happened, shocking those present, but quickly adds that Eren has also saved her on 2 occasions. The military police then accuses Mikasa of bias, as she is his adoptive sister, and recalls that together the 2 of them had already killed kidnappers years ago, questioning their morality. Some even suspect Mikasa may also be a Titan. The tension rises, and Eren, irritated, accuses everyone of cowardice. He says that if they truly want to fight, they should see him as a weapon, not as an enemy. His outbursts of anger concern the military police, but Levi acts. He brutally attacks Eren in front of everyone, demonstrating that he can control him without giving Eren a chance to transform. Levi challenges those present to prove that anyone other than himself would be capable of containing him. Impressed, Erwin suggests Levi take responsibility for supervising Eren. Levi assures Zackley that if necessary, he will kill him. With that, Eren is officially handed over to Levi's Special Operations Squad. After the trial, Eren apologizes to him and shakes his hand. Hangui, watching closely, notices that Eren's missing tooth has already regenerated, a sign of his Titan nature. The squad takes him to an old, isolated castle used as headquarters. Despite being abandoned and dusty, it would be ideal for keeping Eren under surveillance. There, he meets his new companions, Petra Rahl, Oluo Bozado, Elgin, and Gunther Schultz, all elite soldiers personally chosen by Levi, capable of defeating him should he lose control. To increase security, Eren is made to sleep in a basement room. Despite initial hostility, Petra tries to reassure him, saying that Levi is not disappointed in him. She explains that although Levi may seem cold and rude, he is a serious and reliable leader who in the past lived as a criminal in the underground, before being taken in by Erwin. Shortly after, Levi orders the group to prepare for a new expedition in 30 days, despite his subordinates' doubts. He also speaks with Eren about his transformation and discovers that the boy intuitively knows that biting himself can activate the power. At that moment, Hangi appears with enthusiasm, inviting Eren to join her experiments with captured titans. The following day, Eren witnesses her research on the specimens Sani and Bean. Hange, unlike the others, shows something almost resembling admiration for the titans. She explains that they seem to draw energy from the sun, weakening at night and need no food, water, or air. She shares that in the past, she was devastated after accidentally killing her first test subjects, but continues nonetheless to try to understand these creatures. Eren, for his part, does not understand how she can be so cheerful when talking about enemies who nearly drove humanity to extinction. Hangi admits that at first she thought the same as everyone else, but changed her mind when she realized, after kicking a titan's head, that they are much lighter than they appear. For her, the titans hide more than is imagined, and humanity has spent decades doing nothing but facing them with hatred and violence. Hangi wishes to study them from a new perspective, even if it seems futile. Eren notes that the Survey Corps is made up, in large part, of eccentric individuals, but they are precisely the ones who seek the greatest changes. Excited, he asks Hangi to tell him about her other discoveries, and she agrees with enthusiasm. Their conversation continues until the following morning, when a scout arrives with bad news. The captured titans had been killed overnight. Honji deeply mourns the loss of Sani and Bean, and soon everyone suspects the murder was committed by at least 2 people using ODM gear. At that moment, Erwin approaches Eren and, in an enigmatic manner, whispers, "Do you know where the enemy is?" Following the death of the titans, the recruits carefully inspect their equipment. Armin raises the hypothesis that the attack was internal, and that, rather than representing an act of revenge against the titans, it ended up as a great setback for humanity. Connie confesses that when he first joined the recruits, he understood nothing about titans, but now the time has come to choose which regiment they will serve in. John suffers as he recalls Marco's death during the wall cleanup. Days later, during the memorial ceremony, he reflects on his desire to fight, but also on his fear of ending up as a reckless suicide like Eren. In that moment, he recalls Marco's words, which always praised his common sense and leadership ability. In doubt, he asks Ymar and Krista which regiment they intend to enter, and then admits with difficulty his desire to join the Survey Corps. Annie, for her part, tells Connie that he should simply follow what he believes is right. Armin decides to join the Survey Corps, and Annie congratulates him for his courage, despite considering him weak. When he asks why she chose the military police, she answers that she only wants to survive. Meanwhile, Levi's squad receives the news that the investigation has yielded no clues about the Titan killers. They fear the new recruits will not have the courage to join their corps and question Eren about whether his classmates will come. Eren, however, cannot answer. Juon admits to his friends that he is afraid to enlist in the Survey Corps, but insists he must make this decision for himself. Later, Commander Erwin gathers the recruits and delivers a notable speech. He speaks about Eren's importance to their operations and reveals the plan to investigate the basement of his family's home in Shiganshina to obtain decisive information about the Titans. Armin considers it risky to disclose this type of information and wonders what Erwin's true intentions might be. The commander goes on to explain the recapture plans, noting that over the past 4 years they have lost 60% of their forces and that the projected casualties for the next mission are approximately 30%. Despite this, he assures that those who survive will become soldiers prepared for any challenge. Erwin then invites all those willing to risk their lives for humanity to remain, and asks those who do not wish to do so to leave. Many cadets begin to walk away, leaving Jean, Sasha, and Connie unsettled. Jean cries out in anguish to the sky. In the end, Erwin salutes those who remained, acknowledging the courage of their choices and asking them to dedicate their hearts to the cause. The next day, the recruits are gathered by their team leaders to begin training, which focuses less on direct combat and more on strictly following the complex formation Erwin has designed for the next expedition. Armin finds it strange that Erwin's position does not appear in any of the formations. Erwin only discovers his true route through Levi's squad, and the soldiers realize that Erwin has a hidden objective too important to be revealed to everyone. The order is clear, each one must focus on fulfilling their role and trust in the commander. Eren reunites with his friends during the passage through the castle and is surprised to discover that all of them, including Jean, decided to join the Survey Corps. It is in this moment that he learns of Marco's death. Amid the uncertainties, Eren admits to his companions that he still does not have full control of his powers. Jean, anguished, unburdens himself. They could all die, and he does not want their lives to be wasted on a meaningless mission. He asks Eren to prove he is capable of fulfilling his role. With firmness, Eren promises that he will. The day of the operation finally arrives. The scouts depart through the gates bearing the wings of freedom on their capes, while the residents of the walls applaud. The Survey Corps exits through the eastern gate of Wall Rose, with support squads eliminating any Titans encountered along the route. Eren and his team follow within the long-distance formation created by Erwin. Worried, Eren fears his friends will be unable to face the Titans, but Ulwo reassures him, explaining that the objective is to avoid direct combat as much as possible. Outside the city, Erwin orders the force to spread out into formation. The strategy broadens the field of vision and allows each squad to maintain visual contact with the adjacent one. Armin observes the environment with heightened attention. When red smoke signals are launched, indicating Titans ahead, Erwin changes the troops' route by firing a green signal to redirect the regiment. Even so, not all confrontations can be avoided. Sasha, for example, is chased by an abnormal Titan, but her companions manage to drive it away in time. As time passes, Armin notices something strange. The movement signals have decreased, which is unusual. He understands that the strategy only works against ordinary Titans, not against those with unpredictable patterns. Soon, a black signal appears, indicating an abnormal Titan. Another Titan, larger and more agile, moves with intelligence and kills one of Armin's companions. Armin suspects this Titan, like Eren, is controlled by a human. The female Titan appears and reaches Armin. She dismounts him, pulls back his hood to see his face, but soon ignores him and moves on. Meanwhile, the right flank of the scouts has been completely destroyed, as the female Titan brought a horde of Titans with her. Reiner manages to reach Armin and offers him a horse. Together, the two advance toward the female Titan, while Jean fires a flare to alert the others coming behind. Armin observes her movements and confirms that this Titan behaves like Eren, unlike the irrational ones. She may be aligned with the Colossal and the Armored, and Armin wonders who she could be. Noticing conflicting information about Eren's position, Armin suspects he is at the central rear, the safest point in the formation. Jean suggests they distract the female Titan to protect the others. Reiner notices the change in Jean, who now acts altruistically. Jean replies that everyone must fulfill their duty. Armin asks them to put their hoods on, since the female Titan seems cautious and avoids attacking anyone, who could be Eren. The female Titan continues at high speed, but now more cautiously. This is the moment to act. Since she knows the weakness of the nape, they decide to use a different tactic, attacking her tendons. Jean tries, but she dodges and dismounts Armin again. Jean launches an attack, but she defends herself and tries to strike him. Armin shouts, confusing the enemy to protect his friends. Reiner attempts to attack her nape, but she grabs him. Fortunately, he manages to escape, and the three fall back. The female Titan continues toward the center of the rear, the likely location of Eren. The three use the moment to check their equipment, apply first aid, and recover their horses. Only one horse is available, leaving Jean anxious about having to leave someone behind. Armin still recalls the female Titan's expression, but Reiner pulls him back to reality and demands a plan. He fires a signal before deciding, as there is still a squad behind them. Fortunately, Krista appears bringing two horses and finds Jean's lost horse. Reiner thanks her, and Krista cries with relief at seeing them safe. Reassured, the three return to the formation. Later, they see a green signal indicating a change of direction. Surprised, they realize the official retreat has not yet been ordered. Armin asks them to follow it, trusting the instructions. Eren rides alongside Levi, wondering about the other's situation. A scout informs them of the destruction of the right flank. New black signals appear, and Levi comments that the enemy seems to know their movements far too well. In the distance, the female Titan continues to move with grace and agility, eliminating every squad that tries to stop her and using ODM gear as an improvised rope. Any straggler is chased down and killed. At the center, the wagon squad receives news of the disaster on the right flank and questions why no retreat order has come. The left and right wings also notice the formation is broken. The central wagon enters the forest, while the rest protects its advance. John, Connie, and Mikasa are confused by the new route and the apparent sightseeing that seems to be taking place. Armin, however, grasps the strategy. Erwin is drawing the female Titan in to protect Eren. Aurene asks Levi about their location, and the captain replies that the forest serves a strategic purpose, telling him to use his head if he does not want to die. Everyone, including Olua, Petra, and Eld, shares the same anxiety. No one fully knows the plan, perhaps not even Levi himself. As more titans surround the forest, Jean realizes they are being used as bait, keeping the titans away from the center. Black smoke rises behind Levi's squad, and the captain orders everyone to brace themselves. The female titan appears at impressive speed, easily overwhelming the scouts pursuing her. Levi keeps his composure and instructs everyone to cover their ears before firing an acoustic round to reveal her position. He warns the team not to act on impulse or fear alone. The objective of the mission is simple: protect Eren at all costs, even if it costs the reinforcements their lives. Eren watches his allies fall one by one as they engage the female titan, but Gunther and Eld encourage him to move forward. Eren hesitates, sensing they are the most prepared to deal with her. He cannot bring himself to stand by and watch everyone die, and Petra reminds him to follow the captain's orders. Eren realizes that alone, he could face the female titan using his powers, but Petra stops him. Levi gives him the freedom to act, acknowledging that Eren is someone who cannot be contained. He reminds Eren of his inexperience and the need to trust in himself and in the entire Survey Corps. Not even Levi is certain of the outcome, so he advises Eren to do his best without regrets. Petra reinforces that he can trust the team. Eren recalls Levi's instructions at the camp. The Titan form can be controlled without killing him, by carefully cutting limbs and allowing regeneration. Hange suggests experimenting with his powers, and Levi agrees, but reluctantly. They place him in a dry well to test his transformation, but nothing happens, even after Eren bites his hands. Levi warns that if he does not learn to control it, the entire plan will be jeopardized. After leaving the well, Oluo comments that Eren is more human than they expected, and Gunther adds that it is better to deal with this consciously than to hurt himself for no reason. When Eren finally transforms only his right arm, Levi instructs the squad to fall back while everyone prepares to face him. Hange is delighted by the transformation, but Eld and Oluo demand an explanation for the sudden outburst. Eren shouts at them to stop talking, while Hange is fascinated by the warm, skinless texture of his titan body. That night, Levi explains that the squad had drawn their blades only as a precaution, with no intention of harming him. Hange shows the spoon from the earlier incident, and they conclude that Eren needs a clear objective to transform. Self-harm alone is not sufficient. Everyone understands they acted out of fear and decides to trust him, just as he trusts them. Eren promises to remain by the squad's side. Meanwhile, another reinforcement falls and the female titan advances again. Even amid losses and uncertainties, the team maintains its trust in Levi, and Eren knows he must trust as well. Passing by scouts in hiding, they receive orders from Erwin. Cables and explosives attack the titan. Levi says his farewells and leaves Eld in command, while Eren realizes the plan is to capture the female titan alive. The female titan is finally immobilized, and Erwin and Levi wait to discover who controls her. Oluo cautions Eren not to overthink and to focus on moving forward. Levi prepares to separate the human from the titan, but Erwin stops him and orders another round of shots. Krista and the others worry about titans climbing the trees, awaiting the retreat order. Reiner questions how they brought cannons into that area, while Jean and Armin fall back to escape a nearby titan. Joan finally grasps the purpose of the forest: to draw the female titan in and capture her, or more precisely, capture the human controlling her. Eren wonders why this was kept secret, since not even the veterans knew. Olua and Petra rebuke him, but Eren believes he is right. The secrecy suggests there are spies among them. Armin reaches the same conclusion, suspecting that only high-ranking members were informed before the attack 5 years ago, possibly the ones responsible for killing the test titans. Eren realizes that the female titan could reveal vital information about the enemy, but remembers that many have already died. Eld questions whether Commander Erwin made an error in his strategy. Armin explains that the sacrifice of some lives was necessary to save many others. To bring about change, difficult decisions are unavoidable. Eld reinforces that the Survey Corps places complete trust in Erwin, including Levi. While Levi and Mike attempt to subdue the female titan, she hardens the hands covering her nape. Erwin orders a volley fired at her wrists, maintaining control of the situation and preparing the next step of the operation. Levi faces the female titan coolly, saying he loves having her trapped and asking whether he should start cutting off her limbs first. The titan's cry echoes through the forest, drawing titans from all sides toward the center. Mikasa and the others rush to help, while Sasha realizes the sound resembles that of a cornered animal fighting for its life, and that everyone must take care. Erwin orders the artillery to stand ready, while the support team faces the wave of Titans approaching. Despite the scouts' efforts, the Titans manage to surround the female Titan and devour her. Sensing failure, Erwin decides to order the retreat. He had not expected the enemy to risk so much to protect their secrets. Before falling back, Levi refuels on gas and blades, and a blue signal is fired for all allies. Levi's squad regroups, eager to see the face of the captured Titan. Petra thanks Eren for trusting the team and making the right decisions, while Oluo grumbles that he acted like a brat and should know his place. Suddenly, a green signal appears from an unknown location, and Gunther and the others follow it, walking straight into danger as the enemy attacks with their ODM gear. As Erwin had suspected, the enemy is embedded among them. Levi and Mikasa pursue the female Titan at a distance. Mikasa believes Eren is still alive, and that the enemy wishes to capture him. Levi, skeptical, suggests Eren may be dead inside the Titan's stomach, but Mikasa refutes this and blames him for Eren's situation. Levi realizes she is Eren's childhood friend, and plans to distract her while he delivers the finishing blow. Since the female Titan can harden parts of her body, the strategy must be precise. Levi cuts the Titan's arm, blinds her eyes, and severs her tendons, leaving her unable to react. When her arm falls, the nape is exposed, but Levi spots the trap and prevents Mikasa from attacking. Instead, he cuts the Titan's jaw and finds Eren trapped inside a membrane. Levi pulls him out and orders the retreat, reminding Mikasa that the operation is over. As they escape, the female Titan appears to be crying. The Survey Corps returns to the gates earlier than expected. Families of Eld, Oluo, and Gunther wait anxiously. Eren rests in a nearby wagon while the dead are carried on stretchers. Levi inspects the team. Jean reflects on the morality of clearing away corpses and admits he will never get used to it. Armin tries not to think too much, while Connie and Sasha question how much longer they can survive. After the inspection, Erwin regrets that some of the dead could not be recovered. Dieter insists on recovering Ivan's body, but Levi says it makes no difference. Dieter and another scout advance, drawing more Titans. The scouts throw corpses to distract the enemies and fall back. Levi gives Dieter Ivan's insignia as a keepsake for his family. Eren recalls his childhood, when Mikasa tried to dissuade him from joining the Survey Corps. Upon hearing the bell, he sees the sad faces of those who returned. Most are devastated, and the crowd complains about the waste of taxes. Eren wakes upon hearing Mikasa and realizes the female Titan has escaped, having saved him once again. The Survey Corps returns to the walls in a situation similar to what Eren witnessed before, yet some still hold on to hope in the fight for humanity. Meanwhile, Annie recalls training with her father and wakes the last members of her group on the day Eren is to be presented in the capital. Her antisocial attitude draws looks and comments, but a colleague defends her, saying she has already seen real combat in Trost. The superior explains the day's operation, escorting the Survey Corps. The walls protecting the government have no direct threats, leaving the new recruits curious about the security. The official delegates the task to Marlowe and relaxes in another room. Hitch complains about the corruption in the military police, but acknowledges that this is the reason she joined the force. Marlowe says he joined to fix the corruption from the inside. Annie questions whether those who go against the current only cause problems. Marlowe ignores her and instructs everyone to take their positions. Outside, soldiers are illegally selling military equipment. Marlowe tries to intervene, but receives a coin in return and is struck. Annie prevents the situation from escalating while Hitch apologizes, aware of the witnesses. Frustrated, Marlowe reaches for his rifle and Annie challenges him to act, stating she will not help him. He asks what an honest person would do, and she admits that perhaps they would shoot. Armin finds Annie in one of the alleys, disguised with ODM gear over civilian clothes, and begs her to help Eren escape. They need to buy time for the Survey Corps to rescue him before his death sentence is carried out. Annie initially refuses, but Armin insists, reminding her that she is their only chance. She asks if he considers her a good person, and Armin responds that she will appear to be a bad one if she refuses. Finally, Annie sets her rifle aside and agrees to help. She leads Mikasa, Armin, and Eren through the streets, all dressed in civilian clothing, while Jean acts as a decoy, distracting the enemy in a carriage. Annie expresses doubts about the escape route, citing the numerous obstacles. Armin argues that the security within the walls is relaxed enough for them to slip through. The escape route is a stairway leading to the underground city. Armin goes first, followed by Mikasa and Eren, but Annie insists on remaining on the surface. Eren tries to convince her to go, but she says she is not a reckless hero. He counters by saying she is strong enough to knock down a grown man, but Annie remains firm. After finding a deserted area, Annie asks how Armin discovered her identity. He admits it was from the moment he saw her with Marco's ODM gear. Annie smiles, reveals a ring with a hidden blade, and Mikasa draws her blades. Then Annie transforms into the female Titan. Days earlier, Levi and Eren waited alone at the Survey Corps base for Erwin's arrival. Eren apologizes for his rash decisions, but Levi says there is nothing to be done. Erwin arrives accompanied by Eren's classmates and announces that they have discovered the identity of the female Titan. He hands over the plan to capture her in the Stohes district, explaining that it must be done before Eren's sentence is carried out. The goal is to lure the female Titan into the underground, and if she transforms beforehand, Eren will have to decide how to react. He is shocked to learn that the suspected Titan was among his classmates and that Armin discovered her. The underground passage explodes when Annie transforms. Armin regrets that she sensed the ambush, and everyone must regroup with the Survey Corps to get Eren to fight her. Annie destroys the tunnels and kills reinforcements, proving she is determined to capture him. As the three try to escape, Eren cannot transform, even when gravely injured. Mikasa reminds Eren of the risks of fighting Annie and the danger to his friends. During the strategy meeting, Levi asks Armin for concrete evidence. He admits that Marco's ODM gear is his only lead. Mikasa points out the similarities between Annie and the female Titan, and questions Eren about the fight. In the present, Mikasa and Armin step out to give Eren space, while Annie destroys the tunnel, burying him. Mikasa fights in the air against the Titan, while Armin runs to save Eren. Additional scouts arrive to reinforce the team. Erwin orders Nile from the military police to mobilize his forces. A Titan has entered Wolsina. Citizens flee in panic, while the Survey Corps faces Annie, who counterattacks with efficiency. Mikasa learns to aim for the vulnerable points, and Jean helps Armin awaken Eren, reminding him of Marco's death. Armin reinforces that to face the monsters, Eren must give up part of his humanity. Together, Armin and Jean lead Annie into a trap prepared by Hange and others, but she manages to break free. While buried, Eren recalls Armin's words, and the reason he fights to drive all the Titans out. He finally transforms and confronts Annie with a punch. In the cathedral, worshippers pray while Annie falls on them, but the priest survives. Annie flees and Eren gives chase. Hange observes that Eren controls his powers better, but Armin reminds him that spirit alone is not enough to win a fight. Annie retreats to an area of low buildings. The military police tries to organize but is swept into chaos. Annie draws Eren to the central square, displaying her full combat talent. Eren now wants to understand why she fights and why she killed so many of his companions. He hurls her against the buildings, causing destruction. Hange orders her squad to ready the capture nets. Nile receives the report about the Titan in the city and questions Erwin, who admits the plan. Nile protests against the risk to the population, but Erwin insists it is necessary for humanity's survival. Nile threatens to execute him for treason, but Erwin agrees as long as he leads the capture of the female Titan. Reluctantly, Nile stands down. Armin and the others arrive to observe the battle. Annie finally reveals her full determination in combat, but Armin remains relentless. As she fights, Annie recalls her father, which makes her even more desperate. She tries to pull away, but Armin gives chase, remembering his goal of exterminating all the Titans. Out of control, he pursues her to the limits of the walls. Mikasa wants to intervene, but Hange warns her that Eren is not acting normally. Driven by intense rage, Eren forces Annie to scale the walls, but Mikasa cuts the support under her, making her fall. Eren attacks her with fury, nearly completely destroying her body. While swearing to eliminate all the Titans, he attempts to devour Annie's human form, but is confronted with her tears. At that moment, the female Titan emits a blue light, partially melting Eren's body, and Levi steps in to restrain him. Annie, for her part, encases herself in an impenetrable crystal. Jean curses her, but Levi reminds everyone there is nothing more to be done. Hange orders that she be kept safe somewhere underground, lamenting how little they discovered. Levi considers the operation a failure, but Eren points out that despite this, the Survey Corps is now more secure. Later, Erwin faces his superiors and defends his decisions. He explains that he did not ask the military police for support due to suspicions of infiltrated accomplices. Although he acknowledges the damage in Stohes was a mistake, he argues it was less severe than a breach of the walls would have been. Mikasa wakes Eren, who is still confused by the events. Jean laments, saying it all seems to have been for nothing. Armin speaks with Eren about his doubts, and he admits he froze upon seeing Annie cry. Outside, Jean and Armin discuss whether Eren must renounce his humanity, and Armin acknowledges it will not be an easy decision. Erwin, for his part, informs the council that despite the losses, they now have a strategic advantage. After the battle, Hange and other soldiers discover that a Titan remains inside the destroyed wall. Pastor Nick cries out in warning that the Titan must be kept away from sunlight. The scouts relay to Erwin that it will be necessary to cover the Titan in the wall, raising questions about hidden secrets. In the field, Hitch and Marlowe analyze the rubble and wonder why there has been no official announcement. While covering the Titan, Hange questions Pastor Nick about the reasons for keeping the Titans in the wall a secret. He refuses to answer and asks to be escorted back. Hange provokes him, threatening to throw him from the wall, and comments on how many have died. The pastor prefers death to revealing the secrets, and Hange nudges him slightly, laughing. She also asks whether all the walls were made of Titans, revealing her curiosity. Suddenly, the bells toll. A scout informs them that Titans breached Walrose approximately 12 hours ago. To the south of Walsina, Sasha and Connie wait impatiently, tempted to flee to their home villages. Reiner, for his part, senses something is wrong. Everyone is forced to wear civilian clothing, which heightens the feeling of tension and mystery about what is happening. Inside the castle, armed guards remain outside, and the group is still not on the front line. Connie comments that there might be bears in the area. Suddenly, Sasha hears enormous footsteps and alerts everyone. It could only mean that Walrose has been violated. Mike also senses the danger through smell and spots Titans attacking from the south. He orders 3 messengers to send signals to the others. The cadets of the 104th Squad need to retreat on horseback, with no time to arm themselves. Mike and his colleagues are bewildered at how close the Titans are, realizing Walrose must have been destroyed. Accepting the only certainty, he prepares to fight. He divides his forces into 4 squads and sends messages in 4 directions. Sasha volunteers to lead her group, while Connie pleads for them to visit his village, which lies in the direction the Titans came from. Reiner decides to accompany them, along with Berthold. Once separated, the Titans begin charging toward the group, forcing Mike to serve as bait. His subordinates trust in his ability, saying he is only surpassed by Levi. Meanwhile, Eren recalls when his mother scolded him for getting into trouble, always saving Mikasa. He wakes and finds Mikasa at his bedside, asking her to rest. Armin bursts in to report the news of the attack. Mike manages to bring down some Titans but still faces 4 in disadvantageous positions. He also encounters an abnormal Titan, resembling a beast and far larger than the others. Confident, he charges forward, but the Titan hurls his horse at him, and another small Titan crushes his legs. The Beast Titan questions the use of ODM gear, leaving Mike stunned. The enemy notices the use of blades, indicating it also knows about the weak point on the nape. It takes Mike's equipment and leaves him in panic. The Beast Titan orders that he be killed, then moves away in wonder at the technology it has found. In the Stohes district, Armin reflects on the construction of the walls, supposing they could have been built with hardened Titan skin, like Annie used to protect herself. Hange continues her investigation in search of answers. In the lab, Erwin gathers his forces to defend against the recent attack. Hange accompanies Armin, and Mikasa in a wagon, alongside Levi and Pastor Nick. During the journey, Armin thinks about how the Titans themselves could protect them from other Titans. Hange reveals that Pastor Nick knows the truth about the Titans within the walls, but refuses to disclose the secrets. She hopes he will change his mind upon witnessing the horrors suffered by humanity. Ermin does not accept this and reprimands the priest. Levi also intervenes, threatening him, but Hange knows it will not work. Sasha arrives alone at her home village to check the situation. Her home is deep in the forest where she grew up with her father, a hunter. In the past, she blamed the lack of food on the immigrants who arrived. But her father explains that those people were also in need, forced to destroy the forest to make room for farms after the Titans took their homes. He advises Sasha to consider harmony with others. 3 years have passed since she returned to the village, and now she finds giant footprints, suspecting the worst. Sasha finds the village deserted, except for a Titan devouring a woman in her home. The woman's daughter sits nearby, in shock. Sasha runs in and tries to attack the Titan with her hatchet, but cannot wound it. She quickly grabs the girl and flees. Frightened, she loses her horse, forcing her to use a bow and arrows. The girl explains that nobody helped her mother because they knew she was unable to move. All they could do was watch. Sasha tries to calm her as they flee. She recalls Ymir, who encouraged her not to be ashamed of her simple ways, and to live her life as she pleased, and Krista, who always accepted her as she was. Inspired, Sasha assures the girl they will find help if they keep running. Stopping to ready her bow, Sasha shoots the Titan, hitting its chest to no effect. With her last 2 arrows, she wounds one of the Titan's eyes and drives the other arrow into the remaining one, blinding it. While fleeing, she finds her father and other hunters who have already rescued the girl. Her father shows pride and relief at the safe return of both his daughter and the girl. Connie races to his home village and finds it completely destroyed and deserted. Upon arriving at his house, he comes across a Titan lying on its back, seemingly trapped there, something that makes no sense since its legs are weak and it cannot move. Connie stares in bewilderment at this strange Titan. His superiors suggest the villagers may have survived since there are no traces of blood or scattered bodies. Even so, Gelgar feels something is not right. The Titans could not have destroyed the empty buildings on their own, and it is unlikely the villagers escaped on horseback. Just before they depart, the Titan speaks and welcomes Connie home, unnerving him greatly. Reiner, however, insists they must continue the mission to locate survivors. In another area, Nanaba and Henning guide Krista and Ymir southward, trying to identify exactly where the walls were breached. Ymir suggests they should be dismissed since they do not have ODM gear, but Krista insists on continuing. Her willingness to take risks was one of the reasons she joined the Survey Corps. Krista reassures Ymir, saying she does not need to come if she prefers the military police, but Ymir decides to stay, stating she joined the squad by her own will. Krista thanks her. Meanwhile, on the eastern defense line, the garrison manages to defeat a Titan with a combination of cannon fire and ODM gear. Captain Rico senses something is off about the recent attack. Hannes, inspecting the wall perimeter, feels the same. The number of Titans does not match a supposed breach in the walls. With night falling, Connie, Reiner, and their squad advance across terrain lit only by torches, fearing ambushes. Fortunately, they manage to reunite with another squad. Nanaba and Gelgar are shocked to realize that in no direction are there signs of a hole in the walls. Wanting to investigate further, they come across exhausted horses and are forced to seek shelter in the ruins of a nearby castle. Meanwhile, Hange examines a rock fragment left by the female Titan's transformation and notices that its composition resembles that of the walls. The idea then surfaces. Perhaps Eren could seal the hole in Wall Maria using his Titan power. Armin suggests taking advantage of the darkness of night to attempt to patch the wall, as it would be the best chance to prevent new attacks. All eyes turn to Eren for confirmation, and Levi reminds everyone there is no other choice. The situation is desperate. Eren agrees, determined to do whatever is necessary, thinking of the key and his father's basement, hoping to find useful clues there. Levi allows Pastor Nick to monitor the refugees forced to flee. Hange asks whether he has changed his mind about revealing secrets, but he remains firm in his beliefs. The Order of the Walls is not something he can decide alone. He only admits that someone with the power to change everything has joined the trainee corps this year. At that moment, Sasha arrives with a message for Hange. In the castle, the squad discovers it is surrounded by Titans, who seem alert even without sunlight. Connie points to the nearby Beast Titan, leaving everyone alarmed as he appears to be heading directly for the walls. Hanga, Armin, Eren, and Mikasa are tasked with supporting their colleagues in the besieged castle. The Titans begin to attack the tower, forcing Nanaba, Henning, and the others to protect the unarmed cadets. The Beast Titan climbs the wall, watching while his subordinates advance against Utgard Castle. A few hours earlier, while inspecting the ruins, the soldiers found supplies labeled in foreign characters, suspecting the place had been used as a hideout by bandits. The veterans take charge of protecting the 104th cadets and plan a 4-hour escape. Krista believes the situation may not be so dangerous, since they found no holes in the walls. The only Titans appeared during the initial attack. Ymir asks Connie about his village, and he explains what happened, suspecting everyone had escaped, but unable to understand why the village was in ruins. He mentions the Titan in his house, which reminds him of his mother. Ymir laughs, finds it absurd, and calls him stupid, provoking Connie to shout at her to shut up. Later, Reiner notices Ymir rummaging through the supplies. He warns her to stop making fun of Connie, who is already worried. Ymir picks up a can and complains about the herring, but Reiner notices the label is in a foreign language. Before they can discuss further, the Titans attack. The 4 veteran soldiers face the large Titan, which crushes the smaller ones with its weight. However, another Titan manages to enter through the gates. Reiner organizes the rest of the team to barricade their position. Upon opening the lower door, he finds a Titan already inside, triggering traumatic memories of when he lost a friend to another Titan. Bertholdt steps forward and drives a blade through the enemy, while Yomer and the others hurl a cannon down the spiral staircase, taking it down. Reiner saves Connie from a smaller Titan, but ends up getting bitten. Connie cuts the Titan's mouth to free Reiner, and together they kick it out the window before locking the door. Connie promises to return the favor, but Reiner assures him he was only fulfilling his duty as a soldier. Bertholdt playfully remarks that Reiner was not acting like a warrior. Outside, the team realizes their superiors managed to eliminate most of the Titans, but a new attack comes unexpectedly from above, resulting in the deaths of Lin and Henning. Meanwhile, more Titans close in from below. In the battle that follows, Nanaba and Gelgar find themselves out of gas and out of blades. They fight with all their strength, but Gelgar suffers severe head injuries, and faced with the relentless Titan offensive, both are eventually killed. Krista and the others watch helplessly, frustrated that they have no way to intervene. Ymir reprimands Krista for her tendency to act heroically, and then asks Connie for his knife, offering to face the Titans herself. Before she goes, she recalls a promise she made to Krista during training on a snow-covered mountain. She cannot decide for someone else's life, but she wants to live in a way she can be proud of herself. When morning comes, Ymir leaps from the tower. Krista, desperate, asks her to stop, but Ymir wounds herself in the fall with the knife and transforms into a fierce and agile Titan. Flashback. During the winter training exercises of the trainee corps, Reiner informs them that Krista and Ymir are missing. Krista was last seen helping Daz, who was feeling unwell. Getting lost in the snowstorm could have been fatal. Eren offers to search for them but is stopped by superiors. The rescue team needs to handle the situation to avoid further losses. As they push forward, Ymir tells Krista to leave Daz's body behind, arguing it is his fault for overexerting himself in training. Krista refuses, insisting there is still a chance to save him. Ymir senses that Krista does not only want to save Daz, but also wants to prove her heroic courage. Ymir comments on Krista's difficult circumstances, including rumors that she might be an illegitimate child and a target of noble conspiracies. Ymir explains that she joined the squad for similar reasons and admits she sought Krista out by identification, but insists they are different people and that she would never give up her own name. With an idea in mind, Ymir suggests placing Daz near the cliff close to the base camp, but Krista refuses. Determined, Ymir pushes Krista ahead to continue alone and presses forward. Krista alone finally spots the base camp. Eren and the others prepare to search for them in the snowstorm until they notice Krista's lantern in the distance. The storm eases and Krista arrives at camp, where Ymir is already there, making sure Daz is warm in the cabins. Krista asks how Ymir survived the fall, and Ymir reveals her secret. Ymir transforms into a small, agile Titan and bites through the nape of enemies below. Reiner and Bertholdt recognize in her the same Titan that had devoured their friend years ago. Reiner supports Krista, who was unaware of Ymir's identity as a Titan, and both realize that Ymir may have valuable information about the enemy. Despite being outnumbered, Ymir keeps fighting and defending the tower. Krista encourages her not to hold back, even if it means destroying the tower. The tower collapses, allowing her friends to climb over it to the ground. Ymir, however, is severely attacked and overpowered. Krista runs to help her, but a Titan blocks her path. Fortunately, Mikasa arrives in time and eliminates the obstacle. Hangei's squad intervenes, flying in formation to eliminate the enemies, giving Eren his first victory. Mikasa and the rest of the team clear Utgard Castle, finding Ymir gravely injured. When she wakes, Krista reveals her true name, Historia Race. Ymir falls asleep with a smile, and the team reflects on the shocking revelations and recent betrayals. The Survey Corps now understands that Ymir is a Titan who concealed her abilities to survive, while Historia defends her innocence. Curiously, Ymir's bleeding stops in a mysterious manner, releasing steam from her wounds, revealing the enigmatic regenerative capabilities of the Titans. The drama reaches its peak when Eren discovers the shocking truth. His companions Reiner and Bertholdt are in reality the Armored Titan and the Colossal Titan, responsible for the destruction that devastated humanity 5 years ago. This revelation shakes Eren deeply, as Reiner admits his original mission was to eliminate humanity. Despite this, he suggests that Eren join them to avoid further bloodshed. The confrontation intensifies when both transform into their Titans, spreading chaos across the wall. Devastated by the betrayal and overwhelmed by shared memories, Eren transforms into his own Titan, ready to face his former friends in a battle that may decide the fate of humanity. The Colossal Titan intervenes, hurling Hangi's squad into chaos and capturing Ymir. Hangi, determined and strategic, orders her troops to engage the enemies directly. During the battle, an intense burst of steam repels them. Eren, recalling the teachings of his rival Annie, applies combat techniques he learned from her to immobilize Reiner, compensating for the physical superiority of the armored Titan. The fight is violent and relentless. Eren, driven by deep hatred for the Titans, refuses to retreat. Reiner attempts to escape, but Eren and Mikasa coordinate their attacks, exploiting the vulnerability in Reiner's armor at the knees, finally bringing him down. However, the Colossal Titan intervenes once more, falling from an elevated position and creating an explosive wave of steam. In the chaos, Reiner takes the opportunity to capture Eren, while Bertholdt, reverting to human form, flees with Ymir, marking a critical turning point. In Trust, Commander Pixis devises strategies while Commander Erwin reflects on always being one step behind, hoping to force the interior government to act. Tension grows with the discovery that 3 cadets have transformed into Titans. Meanwhile, Mikasa and other wounded scouts rest atop the wall, still in shock from recent events. Mikasa, desperate, worries about Eren and Ymir, now captured. The lack of horses and the team's serious injuries prevent an immediate pursuit, leaving Mikasa and Armin powerless. Childhood memories surface. Eren, frequently involved in fights, was always saved by Mikasa and Armin. Hannes offers moral support, while Eren arrives with reinforcements and the military police, quickly initiating a rescue plan to locate Eren and Ymir in a nearby forest. The team prepares, tense but determined. Eren wakes in enemy territory, surrounded by Titans, and confronting the harsh reality of being incapacitated alongside Ymir. Reiner reveals a plan to flee at nightfall toward his hometown. Ymir questions Reiner's intentions and her own chances of escape, sensing the futility of the situation. Meanwhile, Hange shows determination, sending Moblit to investigate a Titan in the village of Ragako, despite her injuries. Commander Erwin and the scouts mobilize urgently. Tension mounts when it is revealed that Reiner suffers from deep dissociation due to his past action, including Marco's death. Eren and Ymir discuss the true nature of their captors. Ymir, intrigued by the Beast Titan, suggests he may be the key to Reiner's return, and states that protecting Krista is her priority, indicating a possible alignment with the enemies. Eren, consumed by fury, swears revenge, while flares signal the arrival of the Survey Corps. Upon arriving at Rago village, the scouts find contradictory signs. The area is devastated, but the horses were not used, suggesting the villagers could not escape. At Connie's house, they find a Titan suspiciously resembling one of his parents. Reiner and Bertholdt, aware of the scouts approaching, discuss their loyalty. Reiner confirms his identity as a warrior, and both consider that Krista, not Eren, may be the coordinate they seek. The confrontation with Eren intensifies. He feigns surrender only to attack Reiner. The narrative also reveals Yamato's tragic past, that she devoured Marcel and wandered as a Titan before recovering her human form. Her guilt and regret mark her interaction with Bertholdt. While Reiner and Bertholdt attempt to escape with Eren and Ymir, the latter, desperate to protect Krista, threatens to sabotage the plan. Ymar's story shows how she was worshipped as a deity, then betrayed and turned into a Titan, highlighting her struggle for an authentic life alongside Krista. The climax comes when Ymir, in a desperate act, swallows Krista and flees, cooperating with Reiner to ensure her protection. The final sequence is a frantic chase. The scouts, including Mikasa and Armin, struggle to rescue Eren, while Hangi promises to recover him, keeping hope alive even amid the chaos. Commander Erwin devises a risky plan, using ordinary Titans as bait to lure and corner the armored Titan. Mikasa, consumed by rage, swears to eliminate Reiner, Bertholdt, and Ymir should they interfere. In this tense scenario, Ymir decides to join Reiner and Bertholdt, trying to convince Krista to go with her, claiming the outside world is not as cruel as it appears. Krista, confused and distrustful, hesitates. In a moment of vulnerability, Ymir confesses that her act of saving Krista was also an attempt at personal redemption. Meanwhile, Eren wakes and watches Hannes and the others fighting. Mikasa nearly attacks Ymir, but Historia intervenes, asking for clemency. The confrontation intensifies when the scouts, led by Jean and Connie, face Bertholdt and Reiner, both on the verge of emotional collapse, crying out for salvation. Erwin, with his bold leadership, directs the Titans onto the battlefield in an attempt to rescue Eren. The fight turns fierce. Erwin is seized by a Titan, but insists the mission continue. Mikasa manages to rescue Eren, while Historia does the same for Ymir. The battle grows complicated when Reiner hurls titans at Eren and Mikasa, exposing them to the very titan that devoured Eren's mother. Eren is overwhelmed by painful memories upon seeing the smiling titan. He remembers his mother and his promise to protect her and Mikasa. Reiner continues hurling titans at the scouts, while Ymir protects Erwin and defeats another titan. Hannes intervenes, defending everyone and swearing revenge for Eren's mother's death. Armin and Jean arrive to help, but Reiner keeps up the assault, launching more titans. Historia approaches Ymir and confronts her, asking whether her actions are driven by the desire to save herself or to protect her. She asks Ymir to stop living only for others and to begin living for herself. Determined, Historia faces the enemy. Hannes continues to distract the smiling titan, allowing Mikasa and Eren to get back on their feet. Eren tries to transform but fails. Reiner keeps launching titans at the scouts, who lose more and more units. Erwin is surrounded, Armin cornered, and the smiling titan threatens to devour Hannes. The smiling titan devours Hannes, and Eren breaks down in tears, feeling powerless. Mikasa comforts him, reminding him of his worth and thanking him for giving her life meaning. Motivated, Eren swears to protect Mikasa and strikes the smiling titan, triggering a chain reaction that makes all the titans turn on the smiling titan. Surprised, the scouts realize the true extent of Eren's power, and Ymir understands why the enemy coveted it. Reiner tries to attack Eren, but Eren manages to redirect the other titans against the enemy. Armin arrives with a horse to help, and Eren orders a strategic retreat. Ymir, after briefly knocking Historia unconscious, apologizes and returns to help Reiner and Berthold. Though confused, Armin realizes that Ymir's intervention prevents Reiner from continuing his assault. Eren, reflecting on Hannes' death, grows stronger emotionally. During the escape, Reiner questions Ymir about her loyalty, and she replies she acts in repayment. Without the destruction of Wall Rose, Ymir would have continued wandering, but now she helped save lives. Berthold thanks her. With Wall Rose destroyed, many refugees were forced to shelter in the underground cities of Walsina, though rations would not last long. After a week, Hanji and Connie inform Erwin and Pixis of their discoveries in Ragako village, raising the hypothesis that the attacks may have been carried out by the citizens themselves. Eren laments the loss of half his squad, but Armin reminds him that he saved the survivors, motivating him not to let those deaths be in vain. Eren promises to give his best, and Erwin smiles, seeing it as a step toward the truth. Eren and the other cadets move into the same cabin, now officially members of the new Levi squad. Armin questions whether they are all prepared to protect both Eren and Historia. When Levi arrives, discussions about cleaning duties and rationing begin, and shortly after, they are called for the next experiments involving Eren. Hange observes Eren's latest transformation. Noticing he is struggling, he cannot transform properly, requiring immediate intervention. At this point, Armin's plan to seal the wall using Eren's hardening seems far off. Levi orders Historia to tend to Eren's wagon as they head toward Trost, recalling Pastor Nick's words about her importance. Levi meets with Erwin to discuss the available options, reflecting on Historia Reese's heritage and trying to understand how a simple regional lord knew the secrets of the walls. After recovering, Eren feels frustrated for having halted the entire operation earlier. Connie, determined, promises to defeat the Beast Titan. With Ymir absent, Historia feels adrift and confesses she cannot be the same Krista everyone knew. Eren, however, senses she is stronger and more self-assured this way. Hange arrives with alarming news. Pastor Nick was murdered at the Trost barracks. The military police attempts to pass it off as a simple robbery, followed by murder, but Hange sees clear signs of torture. The culprits were, in fact, members of the interior military police. Hange had tried to protect Nick by hiding him in her barracks, never expecting that soldiers from the very government would kill him. Judging by the wounds and the torn-out fingernails, Nick did not reveal any of his secrets. The importance of Historia to the team remains a mystery. Levi receives a message from Erwin and quickly orders everyone to evacuate without leaving a trace. The government issues an official order to cease all Survey Corps operations, demanding that Eren and Historia be handed over. Shortly after, the military police arrives and arrests Erwin. With the pursuit underway, Levi decides to hide Eren and Historia in Trost, planning to expose the interior enemies. Eren hands Levi a note with details of conversations between Ymir and Reiner, containing crucial information. Meanwhile, two hooded figures observe the scouts from a distance, noting their speed and skill. One of them recognizes Levi from old connections. On this day, the scouts walk through the streets of Trost, coinciding with the anniversary of the king's coronation. Nearby, the police organizes citizens for ration distribution. Suddenly, a wagon apparently abducts Eren and Historia, but in truth, they are doubles played by Armin and Jean. Levi and Mikasa follow the wagon to a warehouse, realizing the kidnappers are amateurs. Levi asks Mikasa to clean up the mess while he goes back to inspect the real wagons. Mikasa raids the warehouse with Connie and Sasha providing cover, ties the men up, and reunites with Levi. Outside, Levi finds the other scouts and confirms his suspicions of another imminent threat, an ambush by the legendary Kenny the Ripper. From the sky, a group of highly trained agents appears, led by Kenny, armed with 2 pistols and ODM gear, as are his subordinates. Kenny greets Levi. Observing he hasn't changed since their last confrontations, Levi dodges with agility, using his cape for protection and quickly putting distance between himself and the attackers. Meanwhile, tranquilizer darts are fired at Eren and Historia, and the wagon driver is killed and replaced by Kenny's troops. Kenny, accompanied by 3 allies, pursues Levi through the streets, skillfully evading shots and obstacles. He finally takes cover behind a bar, while Kenny wields his pistols and taunts Levi, questioning why he now works with the police he always despised. Levi listens, and Kenny provokes him further, mocking the Survey Corps and asserting that both of them are killers. With cunning, Levi distracts Kenny with a rifle shot and manages to escape, using a chair as a distraction to strike the others on the rooftop. Sasha and the others hear the gunfire, and Mikasa relays Levi's message. From now on, they will have to fight not only Titans, but humans as well. Everyone runs to reinforce the defense. At the wagon, Levi confronts another agent, ordering his colleagues to guard the cargo, and not to hesitate to kill, as they have already lost 3 soldiers. Jean arrives at the wagon, hesitating, but is motivated by Armin to act. A message from Lord Reese reaches the Government Council, confirming that Eren, Historia, and Commander Erwin have been captured. In his room, Erwin asks Nile whether they can trust the government to make the right decisions. Nile asks what he intends to do, and Erwin answers that he will take the risk again. Meanwhile, Armin fires at an agent, threatening Jean, taking control of the wagon. More agents appear, and Sasha rescues Armin. Levi and his team fall back to a warehouse, where Armin grapples with the gravity of the life he just taken. Jean apologizes for his hesitation, and Levi reassures him, explaining that if he had not acted, he would have died. The group interrogates Demo Reeves, the merchant who kidnapped the fake Eren. He admits to having carried out dirty work for the police. Levi negotiates with him to discover Eren and Historia's whereabouts. Hangi informs Erwin about the kidnappings and fears Eren may be in imminent danger. Reeves leads 2 corrupt policemen to Levi and his squad. They interrogate Sanitz, who justifies his actions as orders from the king and security measures. The next day, after a ruse, Sanitz reveals that Historia belongs to the royal family. Outside, Kenny slits Reeves' throat but does not bother pursuing Levi, trusting he will appear on his own. Eren and Historia are brought to Rod Reese, who is moved to tears as he embraces his daughter and apologizes for everything. In a flashback, Historia recalls her childhood on a farm inside Walrose, a property belonging to the Reese family. She grew up working as a peasant, and her mother was always distant, reading books. Historia discovered the absence of affection in her own family compared to other children. When she tried to embrace her mother, she was rejected, though the act brought her a strange kind of happiness. After the fall of the walls, Rod Reese introduced himself as her father and decided to take her to live with him. Kenny, acting as guard, executed Historia's mother before her eyes, but Lord Reese prevented him from harming Historia, ordering her to change her name to Krista Lenz. In the present, Rod reveals to Historia that she carries royal blood, making her the only one capable of saving humanity. Sanez and Ralph lament that Hange's tricks forced them to reveal secrets, and Hange mocks them, citing revenge for what was done to Nick. She explains that Ymir was once a titan who devoured Reiner, Berthold, and Marcel, acquiring their powers upon returning to human form. The government could use a titan to reclaim Eren's power, but Levi orders everyone to prepare. On the Reese lands, Pixis discusses with Erwin plans to overthrow the government and protect Wall Maria. Erwin has a plan without bloodshed, but everything must be perfectly coordinated. Henge confirms that the Reese family is the true royalty, and the current royal family on the throne is a fraud. The goal is to enthrone Historia as the true queen. Pixis accepts the risk, but the final decision will rest with Historia. Erwin prepares to face his imprisonment, accused of Reeves' murder, and orders Hange to take command if anything happens to him. The police declares all scouts fugitives. Before departing, Erwin promises Reeves' family that the true culprit will be punished. He recalls his childhood when he and his father, a teacher, discovered inconsistencies in the official history of the walls. When he tried to tell friends, the military police reported his father's death. Erwin understands that the government only protects its wealth by eliminating obstacles, and his mission now is to prove his father was right. Levi's squad sets up camp in the wilderness, while two military police officers, Marlowe and Hitch, former colleagues of Annie, begin searching for them. They find Armin collecting water and attempt to arrest him, but Levi and Mikasa ambush them, neutralizing the threat. In the capital, Commander Erwin is held captive and interrogated. Outside, journalists try to question Commander Nile about the arrest, but are intimidated into silence about the interior police. Hange, meanwhile, manages to protect Reeves' son Flegel from pursuit. She plans to use his testimony to clear the Survey Corps' name, but the interior police's influence over the situation is overwhelming. The only safe alternative is to have Flegel flee, and Hange guides him through the plan. Levi devises a strategy to disguise himself using Hitch and Marlowe's uniforms, hoping to gather clues about Eren. Hitch confronts him, recalling the massacres in Stohes and asking Jean about his friendship with Annie, lamenting not having known the cadet better. Levi decides to reveal the truth about Annie and opts to release them. Marlowe, moved, wants to share what he knows, but Levi refuses. Jean offers to cut their ropes, threatening them if necessary. Hitch knocks him out, but Marlowe realizes it was all a test. This earns his respect and trust. Levi then makes his way to a military camp, invades it with a wagon, and captures the interior police official leading the group. Meanwhile, the police manages to corner Flegel, who pleads for information and questions the injustice of the actions against his father. At the critical moment, Hange and Moblit arrive along with witnesses who confirm the confession. Flegel promises to help the city and takes charge of his family's company. Levi interrogates the captured official about Eren and Historia's whereabouts, but the man claims all of them will be declared guilty and that Kenny Ackerman's methods are infallible. His surname triggers an immediate reaction in Mikasa. Levi grabs the man, but Sasha alerts them to approaching enemy troops. Nile visits Erwin in his cell, finding him injured. He reports that the king will announce the sentence soon. Erwin asks about his family and reveals to Nile that he has entrusted something important to Pixis, preparing him to act. The next day, Erwin is brought before the king and his council to speak his final words. He argues that abolishing the Survey Corps is a mistake, as without them humanity will have no way of reclaiming Wall Maria and will face a civil collapse over resources. The council insists the problem is not the walls, but the death of Reeves and Erwin's refusal to hand over Eren, who represents a threat. Erwin is sentenced to death, but before the execution can be carried out, a soldier alerts them that Wall Rose has been breached by the combined attack of the Colossal and Armored Titans, roughly 12 hours ago. Pixis orders Wall Sina to be opened, but the council vetoes the decision, ignoring the gravity of the situation. At that moment, Supreme Commander Zackley reveals that the report about the wall breach was fabricated, exposing the government's corruption and treason, which had maintained control purely out of self-interest. Erwin manages to turn the tide, but acknowledges the fight is not over. Hange and Moblit arrive at Levi's squad with good news. Thanks to Flegel's testimony, the scouts are cleared. However, the interior police and Eren's whereabouts remain unknown. Zackley declares that the military will temporarily assume power until a new ruler of the royal bloodline is chosen. Meanwhile, Erwin considers retirement, but Zackley reminds him he did everything to preserve his own life and realize his dream. Hange explains to the team about a fire that destroyed Lord Reese's property 5 years earlier, killing everyone except Rod Reese, who days later sought out Historia, suggesting a hidden motive. Eren wakes in a crystalline cavern, bound. Historia appears before him in ceremonial attire, assuring him there is nothing to worry about. She explains her father has been working for humanity's benefit and that all his actions were meant to protect them. Rod Reese intervenes, asking Eren for silence while he explains the situation. Eren surveys the surroundings, sensing a strange familiarity. When he touches the backs of Rod and Historia, he is flooded with a rush of memories. He sees the Rice family performing a ritual, a battle between his father and one of the daughters who transformed into a Titan, and his final moments with his own father, including the discovery of the basement key and his transformation into a Titan. When she was a child, Historia had a close relationship with Frida, the eldest Reese daughter. The two spent a great deal of time together reading and learning, and Historia wanted to be like her. But one day, Frida used some kind of power to erase those memories from Historia's mind, making her believe she was alone. Only contact with Eren brought those memories back. Historia asks Rod where Frida is, wanting to thank her but discovers that she is already dead. Rod explains that 5 years earlier, Grisha Yeager killed his wife and 5 children to seize the race power. He invaded the family's caverns, transformed into a Titan, and faced Frida, who also assumed her Titan form. Despite her great power, Frida, being inexperienced, was overpowered and devoured by Grisha, who stole her ability. Afterward, Grisha continued killing the other Reese children, sparing only Rod. Historia is shocked to hear all this, looking at Eren. At that moment, Kenny arrives and asks why they are still in the cavern, given that a coup is taking place outside. Rod orders him to guard the entrance while the ritual continues. Kenny accepts the order and obeys, showing his submission. Meanwhile, in the fallen capital, Zackley continues trying to extract information from former regime leaders, without success. Rumors about the royal blood capable of manipulating memories begin to be confirmed. Erwin gathers his troops to raid the Rice Chapel. Levi warns his squad that Kenny will be the greatest obstacle. Mikasa shares her story about the Ackerman lineage and how her family's persecution forced them to live in the mountains. Levi asks whether there was a moment when she felt her power increase, and she recalls the day Eren saved her. Both Kenny and Levi share similar experiences, remembering how the Ackermans were feared by the king for their uncontrollable strength. Levi and Hange's squad arrive at the chapel gates where Kenny's interior police awaits. With the government deposed, they are more desperate than ever. Rod reveals to Historia that Frida is still alive within the memories of the Titan power. But to meet her, she will need to take the serum Eren saw in his memories. The attack begins. Armin and Mikasa launch barrels of gunpowder. Sasha fires flaming arrows, while Levi and Mikasa advance. The rest of the team covers the movement with smoke. Levi discovers there are 35 enemies and organizes the attack plan. The smoke distracts the interior police, allowing Jean and Connie to eliminate some soldiers, while Sasha shoots from a distance and Armin coordinates the movements. The police's ammunition is limited, and Levi and Mikasa manage to bring down most of the opponents until Kenny appears to confront Levi. Levi faces Kenny individually, while Mikasa pursues another of the group's lieutenants. Kenny fights dirty and wounds Levi, but the captain manages to counter. Hangi attempts to intercept the lieutenant, but falls after being struck by a hook, and the interior police retreats to defensive position. Meanwhile, Historia realizes she will have to inherit the power of the Titan. The walls and the cavern itself were built with the same power that protected her family and humanity for generations. The Titan had erased people's memories, except those of certain clans, and only Frida knew the full story upon inheriting the power at age 15. In the same chamber, Frida had undergone the ritual of devouring a family member after taking the serum, and Rod explains that Frida could have stopped Grisha's attack had she not been defeated. Only someone of the Reese lineage can fully wield the power, which is why Rod wants Historia to participate in the ritual. Kenny threatens Rod, demanding he tell the truth, and points to Historia, stating she will need to devour Eren to complete the ritual. Historia, determined, accepts her duty, but recalls Yamar's words about living authentically. She questions Rod about why the family never tried to eliminate the Titans, and he justifies it by saying even his brother changed his mind after inheriting the power, as part of a divine plan. Enraged, Historia smashes the serum syringe, knocks Rod to the ground, and breaks his back. She then climbs up to Eren, frees him, and slaps him while he cries in despair. Rod, in the end, licks the serum that spilled onto the floor and transforms, bringing the conflict in the cavern to a close. Levi's squad arrives at the entrance of the inner cavern, but is stopped from advancing when they see the intense light of Rod Reese's transformation. The Titan grows rapidly, far larger than a colossal, and the cavern's pillars begin to crumble. Armin finds a small opening, and Levi asks him and Moblit to escape while carrying Henge. Eren suggests to Historia that she let Rod devour him to stop the destruction, but she refuses, recalling Ymir's lessons about living authentically. Mikasa arrives to support her, while Levi and the others free Eren. Rod continues to grow, threatening to bring down the ceiling. Kenny curses Reese as he flees. Eren and the others watch, feeling helpless. He breaks down in tears until he notices a serum vial fall nearby, labeled Armored. John reminds Eren that he does not have to carry all the weight alone, and that he should trust the group's combined strength. Historia, Mikasa, and John believe they can still win. Levi then gives Eren the final decision. Eren drinks the serum, transforms, and creates a small crystalline structure to protect his friends from the cavern's collapse. On the surface, Armin, Hanjae, and Mobilet see the property crumbling while the Titan, the size of two colossal titans, advances toward the walls. Erwin and his squad observe the situation and receive orders to move. Mikasa and Jean pull Eren out of his now crystallized Titan form, which Levi notes could be useful for sealing the breach in Wall Maria. Sasha thanks Eren, but everyone knows the fight is not over. Upon reuniting with Erwin, the Titan advances toward the Orvud district. Hange questions Historia and Eren about the Royal Blood's behavior, asking why someone with the founding Titan's power would hesitate to fight. They reflect on Grisha's actions, stealing the power from Frida and killing her siblings to escape the king's pacifist nature, leaving behind in the basement a way to fight. Even so, the challenge remains, how to deal with the Reese Titan. Historia apologizes to Eren for nearly giving in to the temptation of killing him, finally deciding to put an end to the Reese family's legacy. At the Orvud headquarters, Levi asks Historia to accept becoming the next queen, essential to consolidating the regime change. Connie questions the decision, but Historia accepts on the condition that she participates in the fight and risks everything alongside them. Erwin surprises everyone by revealing his plan to keep the citizens inside the Orvud district. The enormous abnormal Titan continues to advance. The garrison asks why they are not ordering an evacuation, and Hange explains that abnormal Titans are attracted to large concentrations of people. Evacuating them to Wall Sina would cause the Titan to follow. The idea is to use the Orvud population as bait, staging a simulated evacuation. The advantage is that the Titan is a large and predictable target, but the problem is that the northern garrison has insufficient experience. Levi complains to Erwin about the risk of this gamble. Hange presents a new invention, gunpowder barrels with propulsion. Erwin organizes John, Sasha, and Connie on one side, while the rest prepares nets and gunpowder. He speaks with Historia about her presence on the front line. She responds with determination, showing her growth. Erwin watches and reflects on his own past failures, recalling the children during the first attack. Erwin points out that now they stand on the wall to protect the citizens. Mikasa encourages him to stop lamenting and act. The garrison attacks but without success. The Titan clings to the wall, burning the supports. The citizens retreat in panic. Levi and the scouts then take over the fight. Eren thanks Armin for his encouragement and transforms. Erwin gives the signal, firing gunpowder onto the Titan's hands to break its grip. Eren, with the Titan's head exposed, launches the gunpowder charge, destroying a large portion of its internal organs. Historia fights alongside the scouts, finds her father's nape, and cuts it. Fragments of Rod's memories wash over her as she falls into a cushioned cart. The citizens observe and witness her determination. Rising to her feet, Historia declares herself the true ruler of the walls, Historia Reese. While resting near a tree, gravely wounded, Kenny awaits Levi. When the captain arrives, he realizes there is no need for a rest. Kenny hands him a kit containing Titan serum. In a flashback, we see Kenny facing Uri, Rod Reese's brother, who captures him, marking Kenny's first defeat. Rod threatens to kill him, but Yuri only wants to discover who sent him. Recognizing Kenny as an Ackerman, Yuri kneels in respect and apologizes for the treatment his clan received. This gesture transforms Kenny. He decides to work for Yuri and later earns a seat on the government council, bringing an end to the persecution of the Ackermans. Later, Kenny visits his dying sister Kushil, who worked in an underground brothel, and meets his nephew Levi. Despite having to care for the boy, Kenny cannot fulfill a traditional paternal role, teaching only the essentials for survival, how to use a knife and defend himself on the underground streets. He lets Levi choose his own path. In response to Sanez, who questions his obedience to the king, Kenny explains that Larry was the strongest, and that for him, power was everything. Before dying, Ori warns Kenny that his powers would be inherited by Rod's children, and predicts that the world is about to crumble. After Ori's death, Kenny recognizes the same look in Frida's eyes when she inherited the power, and eventually takes command of the anti-personnel squad. He dreams of an ideal future but realizes not everything goes as planned. In his final moments, Kenny shows Levi the serum retrieved from Rod's back, stating he could still survive though as an irrational Titan. He confesses that he sought power all his life, but learned from Ori that not everything comes down to strength, and that everyone including Ori has their own vices for surviving. Before dying, he hands the serum to Levi, also explaining his family connection and the reasons for his absence as a father. Meanwhile, in the city, Historia's coronation takes place in the main square, Everyone knows it was she who brought down the Titan in Orvud, making the final decision that Erwin had not expected to see carried out. The 104th cadets accompany Historia, who boldly jokes by punching Levi in the shoulder. The captain laughs and thanks her. Elsewhere, the armored Titan and Berthold are defeated by the Beast Titan, who decides to prioritize capturing the coordinate rather than saving Annie first. 2 months after the coronation, Historia dedicates herself to rebuilding society. She organizes colleagues to build orphanages for children, orphaned from the underground and victims of Titan attacks. While the population sees her almost as a goddess, Armin and Juon complain about their chores. Historia watches Eren training to reinforce the walls and asks how he would react should Reiner and Berthold reappear. He answers with determination, he will have to kill them. The new government faces challenges. The regime change has reduced the number of military personnel, and new resources, including a shining mineral, have been discovered. Using Eren's hardening ability, Henge develops safer anti-Titan traps, though Eren's health is affected by the experiments. He believes the sacrifice is worth it. Marlow joins the Survey Corps, bringing hope, while new recruits come from various regiments. Some 104th cadets reflect on how Jean and the others have changed after recent events. Connie returns to his village to check on his mother's situation, and his colleagues still wonder whether she can be restored to human form. Eren realizes they still do not fully know their enemies, but Mikasa interrupts him, telling him to finish his meal. Jean notices Eren has been speaking in a confused manner and recalls a soldier glimpsed in his buried memories, the commander himself, Keith Shadis. The next morning, Eren and his friends reunite with Shadis, noticing that, though only a few months have passed since their graduation, he barely recognizes them. Shadis recalls how he met Grisha 20 years ago, in front of Shiganshina. At the time, Grisha had lost nearly all his memories except his own name. He decides to become a doctor inside the walls and wants to learn everything about society from Shadis. Although he perceives the relative peace within the walls, Grisha feels it is not enough. Shadis sees him as a promising young man, someone with the potential to be chosen. At one point, a severe plague strikes the district, and Grisha manages to contain it. During this period, Shadis is promoted to commander and watches Grisha marry Carla, a barmaid. When Shadis's external operations fail, Carla questions whether he should continue. Shadis replies that only through perseverance does one achieve greatness, and that she should not interfere. Later, he decides he is not special enough and passes the title of commander to Erwin. When the Titans attack Shiganshina, Shadis finds Grisha amid the chaos. Eren, in a panic, tells his father that Carla was devoured, causing Grisha great pain. He entrusts Eren with the task of avenging his mother, then heads with him into the forest. Shadis questions whether the boy could truly do it, but Grisha ignores him. That night, Shadis finds Eren alone during a storm and brings him back to Mikasa and Armin at the shelter. Hungi criticizes Shadis for having resigned when they needed him most, but Eren shares the same feeling. Neither he nor Shadis were special, only his father seemed to be. Carla, at the time, told Shadis that merely being alive is already enough to be special, like Eren. During training, Shadis sabotaged Eren's ODM gear, but gave up when he saw the boy's determination. Meanwhile, Levi receives the Titan Serum, a crucial element for humanity's future. Its complexity is such that studying or reproducing it seems impossible. The military leadership debates who should receive the serum, and the responsibility falls to Levi. Erwin entrusts him with the decision of when and on whom to use it. Hungi reveals to Erwin that Grisha likely came from outside the walls, like Reiner and the other warriors. Unlike the others, Grisha shows tolerance and sought out the royal family voluntarily, leaving instructions for Erwin to discover the basement's secrets. Since the Rice family's memories were erased, this appears to be the only path. Erwin prepares his men for the operation, scheduled for 2 days later, aimed at reaching the basement. Levi warns that the plan is risky, especially after the loss of his arm. He suggests Hange lead the operation, but Erwin, driven by curiosity and his father's memories, does not back down. The chain of command remains, and Hange continues as second in line. Despite the risks, Erwin is determined to uncover the world's secrets, even if that puts humanity in danger. On the eve of the mission, the Survey Corps shares a dinner of beef. Amid laughter and arguments about food, they have to tie Sakura down to keep her from eating everything. Connie recalls that it has been only 4 months since Sakura stole food from the warehouse and the Colossal Titan attacked. Marlow defends his position at the vanguard, but Jean warns he is still inexperienced and should stay at the rear if he does not want to die like Eren. Eren retorts that he is just an ordinary person who makes Jean look like a coward. The argument ends when Levi separates them. Armin argues that Eren has regenerative abilities, and everyone gathers outside. reinforcing the group's unity. As they watch, they see a soldier who looks like Hannes pass by, recalling more peaceful times before the Titan attacks. Armin mentions his dream of exploring the sea and invites Eren to follow when it is all over. The next day, the scouts prepare to retake Wall Maria. The citizens cheer with enthusiasm, offering a warm send-off. Eren raises his hand and launches the operation, while Reiner and Bertholdt observe from a distance, waiting for the right moment. 5 years have passed since humanity lost a third of its territory. Now the scouts advance at night to return to their hometown, moving cautiously. Honge suggests moving during the new moon to minimize encounters with nocturnal titans. Eren's hands tremble under the pressure, and Mikasa and Armin notice, though he tries to hide it. Armin recalls their first encounter with a titan, when he was paralyzed, and how Eren saved him. Eren recalls the first time Armin showed him a book, awakening his desire for freedom. Mikasa recalls the place where they used to chop firewood, and together they realize they are back in their hometown. With the sun rising, Erwin orders his troops to move swiftly, using ODM gear to scale the walls. The priority is to seal the inner and outer gates, while eliminating the remaining titans inside Shiganshina. Aware that the enemy may know their movements, everyone covers Erwin with hoods to conceal him. At the top, Armin spots the remains of a camp, and alerts Erwin, Bertholdt, and Reiner may be nearby. Erwin runs to the outer wall and faces his old home, while Hange notes the absence of titans in the vicinity. Despite this, there is no time to hesitate. Erwin transforms at the outer gate and manages to seal it with his hardening. Mikasa quickly pulls him out of the transformation, and Hange instructs everyone to stay alert. The seal is successful, but Levi reminds Erwin that the enemies could still break through the barrier, so there is no time for complacency. Armin discovers evidence of a camp, counting at least 3 people by the number of utensils found. Erwin authorizes Armin to lead a squad to investigate the site and identify possible enemy ambushes. Although the enemy could be in hiding, the Corps continues to advance. Armin recalls the Titan concealed within the walls of Stohes and launches a smoke signal to coordinate the search. The scouts knock on the walls, looking for suspicious cavities. Suddenly, Reiner appears to attack. Levi reacts swiftly, cutting his neck, but Reiner survives and transforms into the armored Titan. Behind them, the Beast Titan appears with other smaller Titans, hurling an enormous boulder to block the entrance and forcing the scouts into close quarters combat. The battle intensifies. Erwin leads the Survey Corps against the Beast Titan and his allies, including a very dangerous quadrupedal Titan. Reiner, as the armored Titan, attempts to cut off the scouts' escape route. Erwin assigns squads to protect the horses, while Hange and Levi, armed with thunder spears, face Reiner. Levi receives the crucial mission of eliminating the Beast Titan, and Armin coordinates the tactical plan with Hange. Eren transforms and acts as bait to draw Reiner in, allowing the scouts to execute their strategy. He fights fiercely against Reiner, managing to strip away part of the enemy's armor. Meanwhile, Levi protects the horses, and other team members such as June and Connie use thunder spears to inflict critical damage on Reiner. Eventually, a series of explosions leaves the armored Titan in a critical state. Bertholdt recalls the moment when he and Reiner saw Eren seal the hole in Trost, remembering the impact of that act on their mission. Marco overhears them and begins to grow suspicious, only to be immobilized by Reiner. Later, during a camp, the Beast Titan questions Reiner and Bertholdt's loyalty, threatening to take Reiner's armor if they fail again. The objective remains to reclaim the coordinate. When the scouts believe they have defeated the armored Titan, Reiner catches everyone off guard with an unexpected attack, launching Bertholdt inside a barrel toward them. Armin tries to destabilize the enemy by claiming Annie is being tortured, but Bertholdt sees through the tactic. Mikasa attempts to attack, but Bertholdt dodges, and in a desperate act transforms into the colossal Titan, triggering a devastating explosion that destroys a large part of Shiganshina. The remaining scouts face Bertholdt and a regenerating Reiner. Jean and Mikasa take the lead, while the colossal Titan scatters burning debris. Armin feels guilty and asks Jean to lead, as they plan to take Eren to the river. The smaller Titans have been defeated, leaving only the large allies of the Beast Titan. The Beast Titan launches a devastating attack, hurling enormous boulders that strike several scouts. Levi orders everyone to take cover behind the walls, and tells Erwin to fall back. Pressured on both sides, the scouts realized that the smaller Titans were used strategically to lure 3 squads into a trap, leaving only the new recruits, Levi and Erwin, to face the enemy. Another volley of attacks strikes the scouts, and Levi demands an immediate plan. Eren tries to lure the colossal Titan, But Berthold does not take the bait. Jean decides to attack his legs. Eren grabs the colossal's foot, but is hurled to the top of the wall with a kick. Jean calls for another attack to distract Berthold, while Mikasa fires from behind. The colossal retaliates with a blast of steam, sending the thunder spears flying. Mikasa falls injured and asks Armin for instructions, but he cannot think of anything. At that moment, they hear Reiner rising again. Meanwhile, the Beast Titan maintains its assault. Levi suggests rescuing Eren and retreating. One of the newer recruits falls into despair, seeing his colleagues defeated so easily, feeling the futility of the operation. Levi keeps trying to devise a plan, but Erwin no longer believes it will work. He reveals his true objective, to defeat the beast, even if it requires sacrificing the new recruits as bait. Erwin regrets not having discovered the basement's secrets, and recalls that all his fighting was in pursuit of humanity's mysteries. Despite the apparent meaninglessness, he decides to lead his suicidal charge. Levi bows his head and promises to eliminate the Beast Titan. The Beast Titan prepares a new volley, but is surprised to see the scouts advancing. Erwin leads from the front, making it clear this is the finest force humanity has managed to assemble. Smoke signals are fired to disrupt the enemy's aim, and Levi uses the giant titans as platforms to push forward. The recruits realize they are marching to their deaths, but Erwin reflects, even if the mission seems meaningless, the sacrifice of comrades gives their lives value. The final charge is an act of defiance against the cruelty of the world. Erwin is struck by the first volley, along with many others. Marlowe continues the assault, and the new recruits cry out their battle cry. The Beast Titan watches with a sense of sorrow as the scouts sacrifice themselves. As he prepares a second volley, Marlowe orders more smoke signals but falls and dies. Thinking of Hitch, the Beast Titan is entertained, but another wave of scouts charges with courage. He brings them down again, until realizing every Titan beside him has fallen. Levi grabs the Beast Titan by the shoulder, passes along the arm, and recalls Reiner's warning about his own danger. He blinds the beast, severs its tendons, and strikes the nape, tearing out the human form and mutilating its limbs. Levi regrets not having eliminated him sooner and worries whether there are still survivors who could inherit the Titan's powers. Suddenly, the quadrupedal Titan arrives and rescues the beast while the other Titans attack Levi. Even wounded, the Beast Titan declares himself the victor, but Levi refuses to accept it. He fulfills his promise to Erwin and eliminates the remaining Titans. A recruit named Floke emerges from the field of the dead, surprised to still be alive, searching for other survivors. Meanwhile, Jean and the others must decide how to handle the colossal and armored titans. Armin notices that the colossal is thinner, confirming Hange's hypothesis that he is draining his energy reserves. Quickly, Armin devises a plan. He and Eren will face Berthold, while Jean and the others distract Reiner. Armin climbs the wall to wake Eren, reminding him of the dream of exploring the seas. Jean and the others manage to divert Reiner's attention, but he charges straight for the wall. Mikasa gives chase and manages to bring him down, hitting his knee with a spear. Berthold faces Armin and Eren, knowing he has the upper hand over Eren, whose Titan form is already weakened. Armin reassures Eren, promising to do his best to distract Berthold and allow them both to survive, urging him to hold on until they can come out victorious. But in a moment of inattention, Eren slips and falls. Berthold sees an opening and attacks Armin. The young man manages to dodge and cling to his neck. Berthold unleashes a burst of steam, but Armin's hook holds firm. Meanwhile, Jean and the others still have 3 spears, needing to use them precisely. Connie and Sasha attack, with Jean serving as bait. Only Connie's spear hits Reiner's jaw. The last chance belongs to Mikasa, who fires her spear, but Hange intervenes by shooting the other side of Reiner, opening space for Mikasa to hit the Titan's mouth. Berthold grows suspicious, not realizing the true plan, and Armin, surrounded by fire, does not give up, finally releasing his hook. Oren's Titan hardens and breaks free of the wall. Oren appears behind Berthold, using ODM gear, and drags the limp body of the enemy toward Armin, recognizing his friend's sacrifice as heroic. Eren watches in shock at Armin's burned body and realizes the entire distraction plan was his friend's idea. Suddenly, the Beast Titan and the Quadrupedal Titan appear behind him. Eren threatens Berthold as the beast locks eyes on him, acknowledging that both are victims of Grisha. Levi arrives from the sky, and the beast declares the fight a draw. Despite all the damage suffered, the scouts deliver Berthold to his fate. He promises Eren that he will return to rescue him. Levi asks Eren to provide gas to pursue the beast, while Armin's body writhes behind them. Meanwhile, Hange confronts Reiner, his limbs severed, asking about the metal box he carries. He explains it belongs to Ymir and must be delivered to Krista. Hangi threatens to kill him for answers, but Jean reminds them they can still use the serum to steal one of the Titan powers and gain information or revive an ally. The strategy is to sever the enemy's limbs and call Levi to administer the serum. Mikasa finds Eren demanding that Armin be revived immediately, while the quadrupedal Titan escapes carrying Rainer, knocking Hangi and the others aside. At the moment Levi is about to administer the serum, Flock appears carrying Erwin, on the brink of death. Levi must decide who to give it to and chooses Erwin, calling him humanity's savior. Erwin and Mikasa object, but Levi insists they cannot let emotions interfere. Mikasa attempts to stop him, but Levi explains that victory depends on Erwin. Erwin argues that without Erwin it would be no different, since he too brought essential breakthroughs from sealing Trost to defeating Berthold. Flock realizes only someone like Erwin could defeat the enemy. As everyone watches, Hangi reminds them that they all lost someone that day, but must carry on. Eren implores Levi about Armin's dream of exploring the sea. Recalling his pure ambitions, Levi orders everyone out while he revives Eren, recalling the lessons of his father and what Kenny used to say about humanity's addiction to survival. Berthold awakens and finds Armin in Titan form, devouring him in his final moments, pleading with Eren and the others for help. Flock questions Levi's decision, who responds that it is time to rest, preventing the devil from returning from hell. Armin finally emerges from his Titan form. Carried by his friends, Armin wakes with Berthold's memories and faces the harsh reality. Only 9 of the 100 scouts survived. Feeling guilty for having been chosen over Erwin, Levi explains it was the commander's final decision, and now Armin must honor that choice. Under Hanga's command, the group heads to Grisha's basement in Shiganshina. After some difficulty with the key, they find an office full of books and medicines. Mikasa discovers a secret compartment in the desk containing a book and a photograph revealing the existence of humans outside the walls, a secret Grisha kept. Meanwhile, the military leadership debates the discovery, which suggests the presence of more humans outside the walls, confirming Erwin's suspicions. The scouts' return to the city is celebrated, and the recapture of Wall Maria is received with joy and relief by all. The story reaches a crucial point with the discovery of Grisha's diary, revealing that an advanced society exists beyond the walls, completely changing Eren and his friends' view of the world. As a young man, Grisha and his sister Faye dared to venture outside their internment zone and ended up captured. Faye was killed and Grisha suffered a brutal beating, awakening in him a deep hatred. Years later, Grisha joins a restorationist movement led by the Owl, who introduces him to Dina Fritz. When Marley begins recruiting Eldian children to transform them into Titans, Grisha and Dina plan to use their son Zeke to reclaim the power of the founding Titan. However, Zeke ends up betraying his parents to protect himself. As a result, Grisha and others are condemned to become pure Titans and sent to Paradise. At the moment Grisha is about to be hurled from the wall, Kruger the Owl transforms into a Titan and saves him. Grisha watches in shock as Kruger destroys Marleyan soldiers and introduces himself as Eren Kruger. Grisha asks why he and not Dina survived, but Kruger, exhausted and on his knees, explains that his choice was made for the sake of Eldia, despite having transformed many Eldians into Titans. He reveals that his own family was massacred by the Marleyans, and that everything he did sought to restore Eldia. To continue the mission, Kruger passes the task to Grisha: infiltrate the walls and reclaim the founding Titan. Kruger, having held the power for 13 years, was nearing death due to the so-called Curse of Ymir, which limits the life of anyone who possesses Titan powers. Should the power not be transferred, it is inherited by a newborn subject of Ymir. He explains to Grisha the existence of the coordinate, which connects all Eldians and the founding Titan. Though hesitant, Grisha receives from Kruger the strength to fight and a photograph of his family, reminding him of the courage he showed as a young man when he left the walls. Kruger reinforces that the Titan Grisha will inherit has always fought for freedom, the attack Titan. Later, Historia reads a letter from Ymir delivered by Reiner, and memories about the young Titan's fate flood over her. Levi, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin enter, and she thanks them before joining the military leaders to discuss Grisha's books. Hangi observes that, while they lost Erwin, they managed to retake Wall Maria and claim the powers of the colossal Titan. Even so, the danger remains. Humanity inside the walls remains vulnerable. Hangi explains to Historia about the outside world and the subjects of Ymir, revealing that the Wall Kings would not be allies due to their pacifist stance. The memory of the founding Titan shows it imposes a pacifist vision on the next of the royal lineage, but Eren managed to use this power once to control ordinary Titans, something kept secret for Historia's safety. Before transferring the power, Kruger advises Grisha to form a new family inside the walls, ensuring the past does not repeat itself and protecting Mikasa and Armin. Grisha asks who they are, but Kruger cannot recall the origins of those memories. The next day, during a hearing presided over by Commander Pixis, it was decided to reveal the truth about the walls and the Titans. Historia supported the measure, recognizing that the people needed to overcome their ignorance. The information becomes public. King Fritz had built the walls, altered memories, and promoted forgetting to protect the people. While some embrace the revelation and others see it as a conspiracy, most are confused. Hange stands firm, believing revealing the truth was the right decision. The local journalist praises her courage, and that of the Survey Corps, though uncertainty still lingers. With this, humanity comes to understand that the true enemies are not only the Titans, but those outside the walls, who see the Eldians as demons and seek their eradication. In another place, the Corps held a ceremony attended by Hitch. John attempted to comfort her, recalling that Marlowe had died with honor and describing his final courageous moments, inspiring all those present. Despite this, his words were not enough to calm Hitch. At an inopportune moment, Flock insinuated that Marlowe might have feared his death, and that of his companions would be in vain. Armin asked him to moderate his words, but Flock replied with disdain, criticizing the choice of Armin over Erwin, a doubt shared by many. Armin tried to intercede, but Flock rejected him, stating that neither he nor Mikasa had the right to speak, as both would be responsible for Erwin's death. Mikasa tried to calm the situation, but John had to step in to end the conflict, though Flock continued his criticisms. Meanwhile, Armin and Eren reflected on what awaited them beyond the walls. Rivers of fire, endless deserts, and other wonders. However, the memory of Faye Yeager's death brought to the surface the cruelty of the world, momentarily overshadowing their hope. During the ceremony, Historia distributed commemorative badges to the Corps members. Eren was thinking about the discoveries from the basement. They had found signs of hope, but the enemy was still powerful and history could repeat itself. Determined to change fate, Eren would not hesitate to act, but did not want to put his friends, especially Historia, at risk. When he kissed her hand, he had a vision of the moment his father destroyed the royal family, who had refused to yield their power, resulting in their deaths. In the present, Eren processed the revelations and tried to envision the island's future. With winter's arrival, the Titans were eliminated and the former inhabitants of Wall Maria returned, revitalizing the city. The Corps began missions outside the walls. During one such incursion, Floke spotted a deformed Titan dragging itself toward the wall. A revolutionary transformed into a Titan as punishment. When Eren touched it, he revealed they were close to their destination. After crossing a dune, they found the port and the place where Eldians were transformed into Titans. Beyond it stretched the sea, filling everyone with wonder. Armin found a shell in the water, Jean tasted the salt water, and Connie and Sasha played joyfully, accompanied by Hange. Levi, watchful, kept alerting Hange to possible dangers. Armin told Eren that they could finally confirm the sea's existence. Eren, however, reflected that his dream of freedom was still far off, his enemies remained on the other side of the island, and there was still much to be done. Armin shows Eren the shell he found. We are then shown Falco, a boy fallen to the ground during an intense battle. A falcon flies over the field, and Falco pleads for it to fly away. At that instant, his brother Colt arrives and encourages him to hold on, quickly carrying him to the barricades. Colt delivers a report to the Marleyan commander Magath, who shows disdain for receiving orders from an Eldian. Meanwhile, Falco, still in shock, is surrounded by his friends Udo, Zofia, and Gabi, his love interest, who try to bring him around. Confused, Falco begins to imagine himself inside a winged machine armed with blades, until Gabi startles him by splashing water on his face. She reminds him they have been at war for 4 years, and explains that the only way to win is to destroy Fort Slava. Zofia suggests a frontal assault, but Udo warns about the inefficiency of the Marleyan government. Trained as warriors, these 4 children know that when Raynor dies, one of them will inherit his power. Gabi, confident and determined, asserts that no one will be worthy of succeeding her, as she believes herself superior, though her true motivation is to protect her people. During the battle, Colt questions Magath about continuing the conflict, since the situation seemed hopeless. Magath acknowledges that without the Titans, they would lose the war, and decides to maintain control over them, using the Eldian warriors as cannon fodder. Gabi proposes a risky mission. Disguise herself as a civilian, strap explosives to her body, and destroy the enemy's railway tracks. The plan is accepted, and she manages to lure the opposing soldiers into the trap. After destroying the tracks, the Titans are unleashed. Falco tries to rescue Gabi, and both are saved by the new Jaw Titan, while the Quadrupedal Titan destroys the remaining enemies. During the chaos, Falco tries to help a wounded soldier, who insults him, accusing him of demonic contamination. Zeke intensifies the attack, launching infected humans, who transform into Titans, destroying much of Fort Slava. Reiner, gravely wounded, protects Zeke, who transforms into the Beast Titan and eliminates the enemy ships. Days later, the country is informed about the end of the war. A mysterious character is seen buying a newspaper announcing the victory. Among the top ranks, Lieutenant General Calvi questions whether they truly gained anything, and Magath responds that yes, highlighting that humanity will develop weapons capable of destroying Titans with greater ease. Meanwhile, Zeke plans a final return to Paradise Island to reclaim the founding Titan's power, son of Grisha Yeager. He believes he is the only one capable of completing the mission, as this is his last year of life. Zeke apologizes to Colt for having distrusted him, promising that his special power will be inherited, allowing Colt to understand the uniqueness of his Titan. Magath, surprised, recalls that many soldiers were sent to the island without returning, and that now beyond Eren's Titan, the island's demons also control the Colossal Titan. In the infirmary, Reiner wakes and thanks Marcel Galliard for having saved him. Marcel, however, reprimands him, recalling that had Reiner acquired the power of his Titan, the mission would have been completed and his brother would not have died. Although Marcel can access Yamara's memories, the former holder, and understands Reiner was acting with his brother in mind, he still accuses him of being cynical. To ease the tension, Piek, holder of the Quadrupedal Titan, asks Reiner to control himself, and suggests he visit the children, who are worried about him. Marcel admits that despite the end of the war, he will miss his routine in a way. Meanwhile, the young warriors talk among themselves. Udo expresses concern that leaving enemies alive may cause them to return and spread the idea that Eldians are demons. Reiner asks him to calm down. Gabi, upon seeing her cousin safe, suggests going for a walk, but Falco prefers to rest, recalling Commander Magath's warning not to walk through the city at night. On the return train, the Eldians celebrate, and Colt thanks Kabi, whose courage allowed everyone to survive. Falco, feeling insecure, comments on the decision to have his brother drink, which sparks a small conflict between them about who will inherit the Titan power. Reiner intervenes, reminding them that if the higher-ups discover this discussion, their families could be turned into Titans. To prevent this, he demands that Falco commit to giving his absolute best to become the next armored Titan, thereby ensuring Gabi's protection. Upon arriving in Liberio, Gabi celebrates while Colt still suffers the effects of the drink, which was actually provided by Piek. Upon returning to the internment zone, the soldiers reunite with their families. Zeke promises his grandparents that he will complete his mission soon, and Reiner finally reunites with his mother. Falco observes a cadet pestering wounded and traumatized soldiers, including a young man with long hair and a beard, whose identity will be revealed later. During dinner, Gabi shares her exploits and her parents show pride. Reiner's mother asks if he believes Gabi will obtain the Titan power, and he confirms. Her uncle, curious, asks what it was like living among the demons on the island. Reiner, uncomfortable, recalls episodes from the first day: a girl who stole potatoes from the kitchen, 2 young people who did nothing but cause trouble, and an individual with great ambitions who accomplished nothing. He describes the time he spent there as a true hell. To end the conversation, his mother remarks that those from the island are true demons who should be eliminated. The following morning, on the way to the barracks, Gabi notes that her mother believes Reiner has changed, and he replies that he was only 12 years old the last time she saw him. Now he has returned as a man. That same day, the founding Titans convene. Zeke explains that they will soon launch another attack on Paradise Island and need the support of the government, the population, and allies. For this, the backing of the Tiber family, holders of the Warhammer Titan, is essential. Zeke plans to convince them, securing the necessary support for the mission, and in Liberio, a national event will be held where the Tiber family will make an announcement about the operation. In the past, Reiner's mother Karina explains to the young boy why he has no father. He was Marleyan, and unions between Marleyans and Eldians were forbidden. Reiner trains relentlessly, trying to stand out and become a warrior. Zeke informs them that only 6 of the 7 warriors present would be chosen for the next mission to Paradise Island. Reiner is excited, but Marcel questions why he should feel that way, since Reiner excelled at nothing. He was not strong, intelligent, skilled, a strategist, or a natural leader. Reiner's only merit was his loyalty to his homeland. Irritated, Reiner threatens to denounce him as a traitor, and Marcel strikes him. Bertholdt advises Reiner not to mind Marcel, reminding him that the choice of successor depends on the generals. As they run, Reiner dreams that if he can become a warrior, he can unite his parents. Meanwhile, on Paradise Island, Eren was bored until Armin showed him his grandfather's book. Months later, the warriors receive their respective titans, and the general in charge describes their abilities. Annie Leonhardt, the female titan, agile and capable of attracting pure titans. Reiner Braun, the armored titan, symbol of Marley's resistance. Marcel Galliard, the jaw titan, fast with indestructible jaws. Zeke Yeager, the beast titan, a projectile specialist. Pikefinger, the quadrupedal titan, a strategist and intelligent. Bertholdt Hoover, the colossal titan, capable of destroying everything in his path. The commander considered these young warriors perfect, but Magath questioned sending children, as they were not mentally prepared. Marcel reproaches Reiner for being considered useless, questioning how an unfit person was chosen over his brother. Before departing, all were congratulated, and Reiner spots his father in the distance, initially happy, but his smile fades upon understanding the man's true nature. Upon arriving on the island, Bertholdt suggested that when the walls were destroyed, the king would send the founding titan. Reiner, however, asked him to trust the government's investigation. The priority would be to rest during the night, even though Reiner wanted to continue the mission immediately. It was in that moment that we discover why Reiner was chosen. Marcel had told the army that his brother was not yet ready to receive the power of a titan, and therefore was not selected. The following morning, Ymir emerged from the ground and devoured Marcel. Reiner, witnessing the scene, began to flee, but Annie made him react with a kick. She emphasized that by losing Marcel, they had lost their leader and should search for the titan that consumed him, hoping it might have returned to human form. Reiner was reluctant to go back, fearing losing his own life and titan power, but concluded that the blame was shared and that, to redeem themselves, they needed to recover the founding titan. Annie, irritated, struck him, but Reiner got up, wounded, and declared that if Annie cared so much about Marcel, he would take his place, and the mission must continue. When Bertholdt destroyed the wall, the smiling titan passed by them, but did not attack. After completing his mission, Reiner apologized to his companions. As days passed, they met a farmer who shared his experience with the titans. At 15, the three enlisted in the army. On one occasion, Annie spied on Kenny Ackerman, who upon discovering her asked why she was following him. She answered that she was his daughter, narrowly escaping. Later, Reiner, Bertholdt, and Annie secretly convened, and Annie suggested returning to Marley and telling everything, hoping not to be executed. Reiner disagreed, saying they would be killed and the only option was to destroy Wall Rose, so the founding titan would manifest. Annie warned that their friends would die, but Reiner did not care, as everyone was merely an instrument of his plan. While training with the ODM gear, Eren grew frustrated at being unable to improve, always feeling inferior. Reiner encouraged him to keep trying, reminding him of his dream of ending the Titans. In the present, Reiner was on the verge of taking his own life, but stopped upon hearing Falco. After training, Falco passed by the hospital and found a wounded gentleman who asked him to keep his secret. The man explained that despite adversity, one must always press forward, and that those who persevere will be rewarded. Before leaving, he entrusted Falco with a secret letter. At the military base, General Magath learned that the Tiber family had arrived, escorted by formidable soldiers. Willy Tiber, patriarch of the family, announced that the holder of the Warhammer Titan was present, and challenged those present to guess who it was. Before them stood the statue of the warrior Halos, a great hero of Marley. Magath knew the Tiber family controlled the Empire's inner workings, and that at the upcoming event in the confinement zone, Willy would reveal all the Empire's secrets. The next day, Peck startled Porco, while Reiner explained to the High Command how they could enter Paradise Island, but his ideas were not taken seriously. On the way back, they noticed that Falco was indirectly protecting Gabi. Arriving home, they saw Magath speaking with Tiber, who provided strategic information. Willy Tiber admitted he did not feel ready for the responsibility, but needed to act, as the world was changing and the weight of the burden worried him. At the hospital, Falco reported his day's accomplishments and how he had surpassed Gabi. When Eren's grandfather Grisha's father arrived, he revealed that Falco's uncle had been a traitor and that the family had recovered its honor when Colt became heir to the Beast Titan. When asked about regrets, the man confessed to feeling guilt for having been careless, which resulted in his daughter's death and turned his son into a traitor. That evening, a banquet was held where Falco and his friends acted as waiters. Udo, distracted by an unfortunate and discriminatory comment, accidentally stained the kimono of the influential Lady Azumabito. The arrival of Willie Tiber was cause for celebration among those present. After an ambassador's speech, Willie announced a grand event in the confinement zone for the following day. With the arrival of foreigners, the Eldians set up food stalls. Falco found Gabi and, having no money, convinced Reiner to pay for their food. At the end of the day, Gabi felt that her life was about to change. Before the event, Falco brought Reiner to an abandoned room, where they encountered Eren Yeager. Eren said they needed to talk seriously and asked Falco to stay and hear everything. Meanwhile, Lady Azumabito wished Willie luck, explaining she would not attend the event. At that moment, Reiner's parents, hopeful, awaited their son's brief return home. At the start of the event, Reiner confronts Eren, asking the reason for his presence. Eren promises to explain his intentions shortly. Meanwhile, Willie Tiber recounts the story of Ymir, the founder, who became Eldia's weapon. After losing her power, internal conflicts erupted among 8 Titan families. To control the situation, Halos and the Tiber family exiled King Fritz to Paradise Island, not imagining he harbored a secret weapon, thousands of colossal titans capable of devastating the world. Recently, Marley sent 4 warriors to the island, but only one returned. A soldier orders Piek, Porco, and Zeke to accompany him. Zeke remains at the entrance, while Piek and Porco are led to a trap inside an abandoned house, finding themselves trapped in a tunnel with no way out. At this moment, Falco discovers Eren's true identity. Willie Tiber also reveals the alliance between his family and King Fritz, created to maintain peace, and warns that any attack would be fatal for those outside the island. Eren questions Reiner about his mission on the island, and Reiner answers honestly, asking if Eren seeks revenge. Eren denies it, explaining his objectives go beyond personal resentment, and that, to him, the island's inhabitants and those from outside are equal, overcome with guilt for all the tragedies he caused. Reiner implores Eren to kill him. However, Eren ignores Willie's calls for unity against the demons of Paradise, and follows his plan, transforming and devouring Willie, wrongly believing him to be the Warhammer Titan holder. Hours earlier, Willie had said goodbye to his family, foreseeing his possible end. Eren launches a devastating attack, killing generals and causing the deaths of Udo and Zofia, while Gabi watches in horror. It is then revealed that the true Warhammer Titan holder is Willie's sister. Eren tries to prevent her transformation, but she manages to wound him severely. General Magath orders preparation for combat, and Pike is rescued by her companions. Soldiers try to stop Eren with anti-Titan cannons. In the midst of the chaos, Eren orders Mikasa to attack, and she, along with other soldiers, faces Marley's army. Mikasa implores Eren to stop, while Floch spreads destruction and Jean intervenes. During the battle, Eren realizes the Warhammer Titan is not located at its nape, but protected by a crystal buried in the ground. When he is about to devour it, Galliard attacks, but Levi intervenes and saves him. Surrounded with no escape, Galliard is rescued by the quadrupedal Titan. The Beast Titan also arrives, preparing the ground for an epic confrontation. Despite the danger, Falco survives thanks to Reiner, who transforms at the last moment to save him. They then regroup with Gabi and General Magath. At sea, the Marleyan fleet prepares to attack, but upon interrogating a hooded soldier, they discover it is Armin. Transforming into the colossal Titan, Armin destroys the entire Marleyan fleet. The enemy Titans begin to fall. First the Beast Titan, then the female Titan. Armin laments the chaos caused, while Jean attempts to attack Payek, but notices Falco's presence and fails. Meanwhile, Eren fights Galliard and realizes that his teeth and claws can cut the crystal protecting Miss Tiber. In the sky, Hanji, Armin, and Onyankopon pilot a dirigible to ensure escape. Galliard's arrogance leads to his defeat. Eren tears off his extremities and devours the Warhammer Titan. Gabi and Falco cry out for Reiner to save Galliard, and he manages to, but Eren is already exhausted and must withdraw. Gabi, witnessing the soldiers fleeing, swears revenge on Eren. Aboard the airship, the 3 friends are distant and dejected. Levi restrains Eren, while Jean takes command and discovers that 6 companions were lost. Connie feels relieved that his closest friends are alive. Motivated by the losses of Udo, Zofia, and others, Gabi continues pursuing the island warriors. Determined to seek revenge, armed with a rifle and her ODM gear, She eliminates one of the soldiers and approaches the airship, followed by Falco. Colt tries to intervene, but it is too late. Inside the airship, Gabi kills Sasha, who agonizes and asks about dinner. Flulk and other warriors beat the children and after gagging them, ask Jean if they can kill them, but he refuses. Gabi screams, revealing that Zeke conspired with the Paradise Island warriors and that the entire attack was planned. With the Marleyan army decimated, they needed to reorganize. Hange reprimands Eren for his reckless behavior and warns of severe consequences, suggesting he should no longer be trusted. But despite this, Zeke assures that the warriors' deaths were not in vain, since they now possessed the founding Titan and a Titan of royal blood. The atmosphere became extremely heavy when Connie arrived and announced Sasha's death. Eren asked what her final word was, and upon hearing it was meat, began to laugh, though he was actually crying inside. Upon arriving on the island, Armin spoke with Annie, recalling the events of 3 years earlier when Marley's warriors tried to invade the island but were stopped by Eren. Hange welcomed everyone and informed them they had captured a soldier cook named Niccolo. The captain tried to attack him but was neutralized by Yelena, the warrior who had incapacitated Galliard and Peak and contributed decisively to the island's advances over the past 3 years. During this period, the island underwent great technological development, advancing knowledge in areas such as railway transportation and weaponry. On one occasion, Niccolo prepared a seafood banquet, and Sasha was the first to taste it. She was so impressed, she declared it the most delicious food she had ever eaten. While Armin tested weapons, he reflected on the possibility of resolving conflicts with Marley through dialogue and reconciliation. Eren, however, completely disagreed. For him, the only solution was to destroy their enemies with the rumbling. Furthermore, the prevailing view was that the island's inhabitants were seen as demons by the world, malevolent beings with no room for negotiation. With Zeke having only 3 more years to live, time was a critical factor. In a private meeting, the influential Azumabito family met Mikasa, revealing she was heir to that lineage. Mikasa showed the mark on her arm, and Lady Azumabito explained that years earlier, the son of Hizuru's leader had disappeared, making Mikasa the Empire's heir. The family decided to help Zeke, recognizing the importance of the mineral present in the ODM gear. They would offer support in exchange for this resource and protection when the rumbling was unleashed. However, they demanded that Zeke transfer his Titan to someone of royal blood. Since no one agreed, Eren defended his people, stating they were not mere animals and should not rely solely on the power of the rumbling, suggesting they seek alternatives. On another occasion, the young people were laying railway tracks. Jean did not want to participate, but thanks to Eren, they all ended up working there. The nation of Hizuru informed them that it could not trade with other countries, as the world continued to blame Paradise Island. Faced with this, Historia would need to inherit the Beast Titan's power. The group naively believed that if the world came to know them, they could change their image. Soon they would plan an infiltration into Marley, and Sasha recalled they would need to bring supplies like clothes, a brush, and medicines. Eren had only 5 years of life left and needed to choose a successor. Mikasa suggested she herself inherit the power, but Jean argued Eren was the most suitable due to his intelligence and judgment. Connie disagreed, defending Jean as the best candidate for his leadership. Sasha, for her part, argued Eren was foolish, so she would be a better candidate. Eren, worried about everyone's safety, emphasized the need to complete the mission quickly to avoid more losses. In the present, Armin no longer recognized Eren. He had completely changed. At the cemetery, the young people visited Sasha's grave but were interrupted by a soldier beating Niccolo, asking whether Sasha had really died. Niccolo, devastated, said he had loved Sasha as she was the only one who appreciated his cooking. He asked Connie if everything was alright, to which Connie answered negatively, stating he and Sasha were like twins. Sasha's family arrived at the scene, and Niccolo invited them to his restaurant for a banquet in her honor. To keep Zeke under watch, Levi took him to the forest of giant trees, while Yelena, Onyankopon, and the others were imprisoned. For despite the help they provided, their loyalty was suspect. Elsewhere, Gabi and Falco were also detained. Meanwhile, Eren reflected alone, combing his hair and acknowledging he needed to fight to win. Hange visited him, asking why he was talking to himself. Irritated, Eren responded aggressively, saying none of it mattered, that nothing made sense, and that he could escape at any moment. He even grabbed Hange, who defended herself, reminding him he was unwell and asking him not to bother her. Hange left irritated, questioning her own competence as a commander. That night, the group gathered to discuss recent events. the anti-Marleyan volunteers loyal to Zeke had been imprisoned. Connie commented that Eren had changed, now also following his brother, and that perhaps they should prepare to confront him. Mikasa, however, declared she would not allow it, knowing Eren's actions were aimed at protecting his friends. Connie insisted Eren was no longer the same. He had laughed at Sasha's death and demanded answers. Faced with this, Armin suggested a private conversation with Eren to assess whether he had become a traitor and to decide who could be the new successor. In prison, Gabi began screaming desperately. The guard in charge tried to help her, but she seized the opportunity, grabbed a brick, and killed him to escape. On her way out, she told Falco not to trust the island's demons, not even Zeke. Later, when Rainer regained consciousness, he asked where the children were and wanted to understand what had happened. As they fled, upon reaching a river, Falco removed the armband identifying the Eldians and asked Gabi to do the same, arguing it no longer made sense. Irritated, she scolded him for having followed her there. At that moment, a girl named Kaya, the same one Sasha had saved in the past, found them. Moved by anger, Gabi thought of attacking her, but Kaya, seeing only 2 lost children, offered help and invited them to lunch at her home. There, Kaya's family welcomed them warmly and shared a meal. However, when Kaya's adoptive mother tried to make a gesture of affection, Gabi, consumed by hatred and pride, had to restrain herself from exploding. Meanwhile, at the port, Supreme Commander Zackley received Kiyomi Azumabito, who brought a technological novelty, an airship powered by Paradise Island's resources. At the same time, Hange was being pressured by reporters and acquaintances, asking why Eren Yeager, considered a hero, was imprisoned. She avoided direct answers, claiming only that everything was being done for the common good. It was later discovered that Floch and an ally had leaked this information. When questioned by Hange, they claimed Eren was their savior and that if he used the rumbling, they would finally be free. They requested his release, but Hange responded that not only would they not release Eren, but they themselves would be imprisoned for insubordination. Even exhausted, she knew she had to remain firm. At the same time, Commander Pixis interrogated Yelena, trying to discover if she had any connection with Floch, who had recently shown himself to be a traitor. Yelena, for her part, answered all questions in detail. Back at the farm, Gabi was set to cleaning the stables. During the work, a horse bit her head, which frustrated her even further. Falco suggested they keep their disguise until Marley attacked, when they could flee. After their chores, Kaya brought them lunch and shared that all the children there were orphans, cared for by the queen. Gabi, still resentful, stated that all of them deserved to suffer for being demons. Kaya questioned whether that was what they were taught in Marley. Pressed, Gabi tried to attack her, but Falco held her back. The other children warned them not to play around with that kind of thing. Kaya then insinuated that Gabi might have feelings for Falco. Later, she took the two to her old village, where she told them how her mother was devoured by a titan before her eyes. She asked Gabi why they were seen as demons and what her mother had done to deserve that fate. Without an answer, Gabi fell silent. It was Falco who explained that the blame stemmed from a war Marley had started years ago, and that Kaya's mother ended up as a victim of it. Kaya revealed she survived because Sasha saved her and mentioned that soon her family would attend a dinner with an old friend, the Marleyan cook Niccolo, an opportunity that could help them escape. Meanwhile, in Marley, Commander Magath confirmed Zeke's betrayal upon finding ODM gear with improvements made by Marleyans themselves. He planned a counterattack in 6 months, judging it the ideal time to prepare. However, Colt, Galliard, and Pikeg disagreed, fearing it was too much time and that the absence of Titan heirs would leave Marley vulnerable. Reiner, for his part, insisted on attacking immediately, bringing all available forces, since 6 months would give Paradise enough time to grow stronger. In the confinement zone, Yelena admitted to Commander Pixis that she had secretly met with Eren before the mission in Marley. Onyankopon told Hange that Yelena had been devoted to Zeke since the moment she met him, almost worshipping him as a god. Shortly after, First Minister Zackley shared his suspicions with Armin and Mikasa, suggesting Eren was being manipulated by Zeke and the volunteers. But before he could act, Zackley was killed in an explosion alongside other officials. Tragedy fed protests by civilians demanding the rise of a new Eldian empire. In this chaos, Eren managed to escape from prison with the help of his followers, among them Floch. Soon, the military police reported that this group, called the Yeagerists, intended to unite with Zeke's plan. Since their numbers were unknown, Pixis suggested negotiating with Eren, using Zeke's location as leverage. In the meantime, Azumabito tried to convince Mikasa to leave Paradise and return with her to Hizuru, but Mikasa refused, reaffirming her loyalty to the island. Finally, the Blouse family brought Gabay and Falco to dinner with Niccolo. During the meal, the two revealed their identities. Gabay proudly shared that she had killed a dirty demon, referring to Sasha. Upon hearing this, Niccolo lost control and tried to strike her with a wine bottle, but instead wounded Falco. Overcome with rage, he dragged Gabay to Sasha's father, demanding he kill her. However, even suffering, he refused, saying Gabay was just a young person fighting for her life, just as Sasha had done. Kaya, on the other hand, could not contain her hatred. She called Gabay the demon's daughter and swore revenge. At that moment, the Survey Corps arrived, and Mikasa and Armin took over Gabi's protection. Niccolo, still distraught, revealed that the Marleyan wine had been contaminated with Zeke's spinal fluid, and that Yelena had been responsible for bringing it. Since many officials had already consumed the drink, the danger was growing. Falco, unfortunately, had also ingested some of the wine at the moment he was struck. Levi was shaken upon receiving news of Supreme Commander Zackley's death. He reflected on how he had failed to perceive Eren's true intentions. At that very moment, the Yeagerists invaded the restaurant armed flock, demanded to know Zeke's whereabouts, revealing he had always been aware of the plan involving the spinal fluid mixed into the wine. Meanwhile, Eren met with Mikasa, Armin, and Gabi for a conversation. He made it clear that everything he had been doing was by his own choice. He explained that each Titan holder ends up being influenced by the memories of their predecessors, and accused Armin of being under Bertholdt's influence. He then attacked Mikasa, saying that the Ackermans were biologically programmed to protect Eldia's royal family, calling her a slave with no will of her own. The accusation led Armin to defend her, but when he tried to attack Eren, he was stopped by Mikasa herself. To her surprise, her body reacted instinctively, partly confirming what Eren said. Even so, Armin managed to get up and fight, but was defeated with ease. Shortly after, Eren and the Yeagerists transferred Armin, Mikasa, and Gabi to Shiganshina, where Eren intended to meet Zeke. In the forest of giant trees, Levi considered making a Titan devour Zeke to prevent him from being used by Eren. However, Zeke took advantage of a moment of inattention and screamed, transforming Levi's soldiers into pure Titans, since all had ingested the contaminated wine. Levi, even devastated, killed each of his men and began a pursuit of Zeke. Faced with Levi's strength, Zeke transformed and tried to fight back, but was defeated. Using Thunder Spears, Levi managed to pull him out of the Beast Titan and decided to keep him alive, waiting for the right moment to sacrifice him. In Shiganshina, the situation was also worsening. Under General Shadis's training, many recruits had come to think that effort was pointless and considered joining the Yeagerists. Flock appeared and humiliated Shadis, saying he was outdated and that Eren represented a new era. To prove loyalty, he challenged the cadets to beat the general until he could no longer stand. Even gravely wounded, Shadis faced the humiliation with courage, while Hange, powerless, watched the situation spin out of control. Zeke's past also came to light. Son of Grisha and Dina Fritz, he grew up under the pressure of parents who saw him only as a political instrument to restore Eldia. However, he found consolation in Tom Casaver, then holder of the Beast Titan, who became an almost paternal figure in his life. Casaver influenced him profoundly, and when Zeke discovered his parents were restorationists, it was he who denounced them, saving himself from being turned into a Titan. Later, Casaver revealed that the founding Titan had the power to manipulate the Eldians' bodies. Together, they formulated the euthanasia plan to sterilize all Eldians so their race would gradually disappear. During Marley's attack on Paradise Island, Zeke discovered that Eren held the founding Titan. Years later, in a Marleyan hospital, he convinced his brother to adhere to his plan. Back in the present, Zeke used a Thunder Spear to trigger an explosion, gravely wounding Levi. Hange, Jean, and some Yeagerists ran to the scene. A mysterious pure Titan appeared and, surprisingly, took the wounded Zeke inside its abdomen. On the brink of death, Zeke had a vision of a strange girl in tattered clothes, without yet imagining who she really was. Meanwhile, Yelena and Marley's volunteers were assuming ever more control over Paradise's government. Since most soldiers had ingested the contaminated wine, all it took was the threat of transforming them into Titans to impose obedience. Yelena then exposed Zeke's true plan, to sterilize all subjects of Ymir, preventing new births until the lineage was extinguished for good. The rumbling would be used as a deterrent against any nation that dared oppose them. Eren, in parallel, pressured Gabi to reveal who had betrayed his trust. It was at that moment that Pieck killed the guard watching them and pointed her weapon at Eren. She then changed her stance, saying she was willing to betray Marley and ally with him, since Marley deserved punishment for its cruel treatment of Eldians. But upon taking him to the rooftop, Piek revealed her true intentions. She stated that the only traitor worthy of death was Eren Yeager himself. At that instant, the Jaw Titan appeared and attacked Eren, tearing off his legs. The strike was the signal for Reiner to descend from the sky, ready for battle. At the same time, in the forest, Hange found Levi's destroyed body. To protect him, she declared he had died, but Flock wanted to confirm it by shooting him. At that moment, Zeke emerged from the Titan's body that had been carrying him, surprising everyone. Taking advantage of the confusion, Hange managed to escape carrying Levi. Zeke, for his part, told Flock he had been saved by a mysterious girl in a place called The Paths. In Shiganshina, Marley's soldiers launched a surprise attack, descending from airships as Piek and Gabi regrouped with Magath. The Jaegerists were swiftly decimated, and the main battle began. Reiner and Porco faced Eren, who used the Warhammer Titan's power to create spikes and attack the enemies. Meanwhile, Piek fired from a distance with an anti-Titan cannon mounted on Wolmaria, striking Eren and opening a breach for Reiner to wound him using one of the hardened spikes Eren himself had created. In the midst of the chaos, Onyankopon freed the Survey Corps and asked them to join the fight against Marley. Even with many doubts about Eren's true objectives, the group decided to help him. Mikasa, however, made it clear she no longer fully trusted her childhood friend. The fight continued intensely. Eren held a slight advantage against Reiner until Zeke appeared, hurling enormous boulders and destroying the enemy airships. From above, Yelena watched with emotion, treating him like a divine figure. Meanwhile, the Corps forced the Jaegerists to release soldiers from the military police and the garrison, including Commander Pixis, who took command of the men contaminated by Zeke's wine, organizing them to fight against the Marleyans. Nile also helped, allowing Falco to reunite with Gabi and his brother Colt. Pike feigned defeat, but was actually preparing a trap. This allowed Magath to fire an anti-Titan cannon at the Beast Titan's nape, gravely wounding Zeke and sending him crashing off the wall. Seeing his brother fallen, Eren abandoned the fight against Reiner and ran toward him. He managed to incapacitate Porco, who no longer had the strength to regenerate, but had to grapple with a dilemma. Colt was pleading for Zeke not to scream until Falco was out of danger, since the boy had ingested the contaminated wine. Even so, Zeke apologized and screamed, transforming all the infected into pure Titans, among them Pixis, Nile, and Falco himself. Colt tragically died, burned by his brother's transformation. In the midst of the despair, Zeke ordered Falco, now transformed, to attack Reiner. Porco, accessing the memories of his late brother Marcel, recognized that Marcel had always been a better person than Reiner. Then, in an act of sacrifice, he offered himself to be devoured by Falco, ensuring the transfer of the Jaw Titan. At that decisive instant, Eren was caught off guard. A Titan attacked and decapitated him, flinging his head directly into Zeke's hands. Eren's consciousness was immediately transported to the Paths, where he found an aged Zeke bound in chains, a consequence of the former King Fritz's will to renounce war. There also appeared a mysterious young woman, Ymir, the founder. Eren rejected Zeke's euthanasia plan, calling it insane, and tried to persuade Ymir to follow him. However, Zeke revealed that only those with royal blood could command her. Breaking free from his chains, he led Eren through their father Grisha's memories to show how he had been manipulated. The journey revealed, however, another truth. Grisha had abandoned his nationalist fanaticism, and deep down wished Eren had a different life, based on his own choices. The crucial point came when Grisha faced the Reese family. He implored Frida to use the founding Titan to save Paradis, but faced with her refusal, he was forced to kill them and take the power for himself. After the massacre, in tears, Grisha admitted that everything depended on Eren, and asked Zeke to stop his brother from going forward. Back in the Paths, Zeke ordered Ymir to begin the euthanasia. As she walked toward the coordinate, Ora managed to break his chains and ran after her. At that moment, Ymir's true story was revealed. 2,000 years ago, she was a slave in a village dominated by King Fritz. Accused unjustly of a crime, she was hunted by soldiers and ended up taking refuge inside a colossal tree, where a strange centipede-like creature fused with her, giving rise to the first Titan. With this power, King Fritz used Ymir as a weapon, conquering enemies and imposing his supremacy. He had 3 daughters with her, Maria, Rose, and Sina. Even after saving the king's life in an attack, Ymir was never rewarded, only reminded of her status as a servant. Weary of living as a slave, she chose to die. The king then ordered his daughters to devour her body to maintain the power within the lineage, giving rise to the 9 Titans. Upon witnessing this memory, Eren did something different. He told Ymir she was no longer a slave and could decide for herself. For the first time in 2,000 years, she chose to be free and joined Eren. At that instant, the rumbling began. The walls of Paradise crumbled, and thousands of colossal titans started their destructive march across the world. After awakening the power of the paths, Eren communicated with all subjects of Ymir and announced his decision to exterminate all of humanity outside Paradise Island. With that, he advanced alongside the Wall Titans to crush the rest of the world, while the Pure Titans created by Zeke attacked ferociously in Shiganshina. In this chaos, Armin, Mikasa, and Jean mobilized the Yeagerists and the surviving cadets to fight. Connie, taking advantage of the confusion, took the unconscious Falco to his village, planning to sacrifice him to save his mother, still trapped in Titan form. In the streets, Gabi managed to save Kaya from a Pure Titan who had once been Nile and was soon protected by the Blaus family. With John's instructor Shediz's leadership, Eldia's soldiers lured the Pure Titans to Shiganshina's castle, where they fought side by side to end the threat. Armin, in a painful moment, put an end to the Pixis Titan's suffering, wishing him to rest in peace. Shortly after, he and Mikasa reunited with Gabi and the Blaus family. Frightened by what Connie intended to do, Gabi asked Armin to try to convince Eren to abandon the genocide. She also revealed that Reiner's armored Titan's shell had shattered when the walls fell, leading Armin to suspect that all Titan hardenings had broken apart, including the crystal imprisoning Annie. As the colossal Titans marched toward the horizon, Trost's residents mourned the destruction and deaths caused by the rumbling. In this same period, Annie woke from her crystal. Weak and disoriented, she was helped by Hitch to escape the military police. Annie revealed she no longer wanted to fight, only to find her father again. In Marley, her adoptive father reflected on how harshly he had treated her and admitted he only wanted to see her again. In the Liberio district, the Eldians tried to warn the guards about the rumbling, but were ignored, which triggered a conflict. Back in Shiganshina, Shadis predicted the Yeagerists would take control of the island and advised the cadets to cooperate, at least for now, to survive. Meanwhile, Armin left with Gabi in search of Connie and Falco. In his frustration, he took it out on Mikasa, criticizing her constant concern for Eren and lamenting that they had not chosen to revive Erwin instead of him. Later, Mikasa realized she had lost her scarf. In parallel, Floch revealed that months earlier, he had already known Eren's true plan. He gathered the foreign volunteers and made clear their options were to submit to the new Eldian Empire or die. To reinforce his authority, he executed one of them. He also tried to persuade Jean and Mikasa to accept a retirement as heroes of Paradise, reminding them of the losses of Hangi and Levi. Meanwhile, Flocko finally woke, confused and with no memory of what had happened. Connie, determined to deceive him and lead him to the sacrifice, told him he would soon go through a great change in life. Outside the walls, Peak and Magath were discussing the rumbling when they were surprised by Hange's arrival. She proposed an alliance and brought with her Levi, gravely wounded but still alive. After shaking off the Yeagerists pursuing them, Hange set up camp in the forest and tended to Levi. When they received Eren's transmission, Levi immediately awoke, demanding to know what had happened. Shortly after, Hange, Levi, Peak, and Magath agreed to join forces. Meanwhile, Connie arrived with Falco at Ragako village, ready to sacrifice him to his mother. However, Armin and Gabi arrived in time to stop him. In a desperate act, Armin offered his own life, making Connie reflect and abandon the plan, saving Falco. The group returned to Shiganshina, where they found Annie, who had left Hitch behind and decided to join them. Mikasa refused to follow the Yeagerists and recovered her scarf from Louise, who was on the brink of death. Later, Floch and the Yeagers prepared the execution of Yelena and Onyankopan, accusing them of treason. Onyankopan tried to argue that exterminating the entire world was insane, but was not heard. Jean, tasked with shooting, fired 4 times into the ground, a prearranged signal. At that instant, Piak appeared in her quadrupedal titan form and rescued Jean, Yelena, and Onyankopan, reunited with Magath, Levi, and Hange. Jean joined the group and they used the river to erase their escape trail. Meanwhile, Mikasa, Armin, Connie, Annie, Gabi, and Falco also escaped, taking supplies. Annie noticed they were being watched from a window, but the group managed to press ahead. Finally, they encountered Reiner, who announced the formation of a squad, a last desperate attempt to save the world from the rumbling. Some days earlier, Jean had a dream in which he imagined a simple, happy future, a quiet life alongside a wife and son. He was, however, awakened by Hango, who summoned him along with Mikasa to join the Survey Corps survivors and the Marlians in order to stop the extermination Eren had set in motion. Nanjin initially hesitated to participate, but ended up changing his mind after thinking of Marco. In the forest, while the group waited for a meal, Magath started a discussion with the Survey Corps, raising the question of who had truly started the conflict and who were the real demons in that war. Annie also confronted Mikasa, raising the possibility that if they could not persuade Eren to abandon the rumbling, it might be necessary to kill him. The two decided to postpone the decision about that confrontation. Later, during dinner, the group began considering using an airship to reach the founding Titan. But there was a problem: they did not know where Eren was. When Yelena claimed she had no information, Magath and Piek revealed that she was, in fact, Marleyan, and had invented a story to infiltrate alongside Zeke. This led Jean to explode in rage and violently assault Rainer, after recalling that he and Annie had been responsible for Marco's death. Gabi, desperate, begged Jean to help save her family and Marley, but he walked away without answering. The next day, on the way to the port, Jean ended up apologizing to Gabi, though admitting he still could not forgive Rainer. Hayek advanced to scout the location and discovered the port was under Yeagerist control. To make matters worse, Flock was holding Kiyomi Azumabito hostage. Henge and Magath inspected the port and saw the flying boat was intact, but the Yeagerists could destroy it at any moment. The group concluded that securing Azumabito's engineers was essential to repair and prepare the aircraft, meaning protecting them from the Yeagerists even if it required eliminating all the enemies present. This possibility divided opinion. Seeking information, Magath even resorted to torturing Yelena to make her reveal Eren's whereabouts, but afterward reflected on his actions, apologized to the younger generation for burdening them with the weight of the past, and called for a momentary truce in the bloodshed. Armin, however, disagreed and advocated a more peaceful alternative. Meanwhile, inside the port, Flock was discussing the so-called New World Order with Kiyomi. Armin and Connie arrived on horseback and tried to deceive him, saying the Marleyans had fled by sea after killing their allies and that they needed the flying boat to pursue them. However, upon arriving, they found Samuel and Daz on guard, determined to blow up the aircraft. With great effort, Armin and Connie managed to convince them to remove the explosives, but Flock remained suspicious and tried to kill the engineers, being interrupted by Kiyomi. At that moment, Mikasa burst in, invading the building to save the engineers. Flock managed to escape, but declared Mikasa, Armin, and Connie as traitors. Soon after, John, Henge, and Magath arrived to support their companions. Full-scale battle broke out. Annie and Rainer transformed into Titans and faced the Yeagerists. At the docks, Armin tried to prevent Daz from reinstalling the explosives, but ended up being shot by Samuel. In a desperate confrontation, Connie was forced to kill his former fellow soldiers. Witnessing the scene, Armin recalled Bertholdt saying that someone would always have to get their hands dirty to achieve a goal. After the battle, the engineers told Henge they would need at least half a day to prepare the flying boat, insufficient time to save Liberio. Faced with this, Kiyomi suggested departing for the coastal city of Odiha in Marley, where an Azumabito hangar would make repairs easier. Magath, Annie, and Rainer escorted Kiyomi and the engineers to the dock, supported by their Titans. During the fighting, Falco, determined to fight, joined the battle, but upon losing control of his Titan form, he nearly attacked Pike. Magath managed to pull him out of the transformation in time. At a critical moment, Flock tried to destroy the hull of the ship with a thunder spear, but was shot down by Gabi and fell into the sea. Already on board, Magath and Shadis, who had quietly slipped into the operation, decided to stay behind and sacrifice their lives by destroying the enemy cruiser. Before dying, they exchanged words of mutual respect. Thanks to this, the group managed to set sail for Odiha. Despite the victory, Henge was clear. Marley and Liberio could no longer be saved. During the voyage, Annie continued to press Mikasa, asking if she would be willing to allow Eren's death to stop the rumbling, confessing she was tired of so much violence. Some months before the attack on Liberio, the Corps had already disembarked on Marley's coast, on the way to visit the Azumabito family. They witnessed firsthand the brutality of the so-called New World Order. They even managed to save a boy named Ramzi, who survived as a pickpocket, though he still stole the money they were carrying. Upon reaching the Azumabito mansion, they learned that Marley was intensifying its crackdown on subjects of Ymir. Henge attempted to establish a dialogue for peace through alliances with groups supporting these subjects. During this period, Eren disappeared for a time. Mikasa managed to find him at Ramzi's home. There, he questioned her loyalty and asked what she truly meant to him. Surprised, Mikasa answered that she saw him as family. Afterward, the group reunited and spent the night at a celebration with Ramsey's family. The next day, at the assembly of the subjects of Ymir's support group, the local representative declared that those who did not identify as Eldians should be freed, while Paradise Island's inhabitants should be exterminated. A speech met with applause by the majority. Eren left the gathering and never met the Korra again until the attack on Liberio. Mikasa would later reflect on those moments, wondering if, had she made different choices, the course of history might also have changed. The memories reveal that Eren spoke with Yelena and reinforced Zeke's euthanasia plan, but at the same time revealed his true intentions to Floch and Historia. Upon discovering this, Historia, opposed to the plan, decided to become pregnant in an attempt to prevent Eren. In parallel, Zeke explained to his brother that the Ackermans are not genetically forced to protect the host, clarifying that Mikasa stays by his side simply out of love. In this dialogue, Eren revealed his wish that after his death, his friends would be able to live long and happy lives. Meanwhile, in the present, the Global Alliance realizes how powerless it is against the Rumbling's force. Its weapons have no effect on the Attack Titan and the horde of colossal titans. The giants advance through the port, crushing buildings and killing without mercy all they encounter. Among the victims is Ramsey, the boy Eren and his companions had helped in the past. Upon finding his brother, who was searching for hidden jewels, they are surprised by the Rumbling's advance. The older brother dies immediately, struck by debris, and Ramsey, his legs crushed, is trampled to death. In his final moments, he glimpses Ymir, the founder, before succumbing. The tragedy also reaches Zeke's grandparents, who resigned, accept the bitter fate of dying as a consequence of their own grandson's acts. Sometime earlier, during a visit to Liberio, Eren was already aware that he would one day be responsible for the city's end. Convinced there was no peaceful solution to protect Paradis, he nonetheless saved Ramsey from being beaten by thieves. In tears, he apologized to the boy, explaining that the world beyond the walls was not as he had dreamed, and that this was why he had decided to destroy it. Back in the present, the Rumbling advances toward other nations, and Eren feels a mixture of relief and determination. In the paths, he tries to hear Armin's opinion about his decision. Before receiving an answer, Armin wakes up on the ship heading to Odiha, where they prepare the flying boat. During the voyage, he talks with Annie, thanking her for her company during the time she was imprisoned in the crystal, and recognizing her strength for not having gone insane in the solitude. Armin admits his feelings for her, but says he does not consider himself a good person, since he too was responsible for the deaths of innocents. Despite this, he still believes the world holds mysteries worth discovering. Upon arriving in Odiha, Annie decides not to follow the group in the flying boat. Convinced of her father's death, she feels she has no more reasons to fight, and remains on the ship alongside Yelena, Falco, Gabi, and Kiyomi Azumabito. During the night, they press Yelena, who reveals Eren's likely destination, Fort Slava, where the last aircraft capable of confronting the Rumbling were kept. At dawn, when the flying boat is about to take off, Floch suddenly appears, a survivor of the earlier confrontation, and damages the aircraft's hull. Mikasa reacts quickly and kills him, but the repairs must be completed before the Titans arrive. It is at this moment that Hange makes the final decision to take responsibility. Before sacrificing herself, she names Armin as the new commander of the Survey Corps, and in a lighthearted tone, jokes that now Levi is his subordinate. Levi, serious, asks if she is sure, and Hange confirms, asking him not to ruin her farewell. Armed with thunder spears and her ODM gear, she faces the colossal Titans alone. Though she fights bravely, the overwhelming heat consumes her, and Hange dies in flames. As the flying boat finally takes off, the group mourns her loss. Levi, in a hushed voice, promises they will meet again soon. In her final moments of consciousness, Hange watches the aircraft rising into the sky, and, in the afterlife, is received by Erwin, Moblit, and other fallen comrades, proud to have fulfilled her duty to the end. Inside the flying boat, the mood was one of grief and silence after Hange's death. Armin, now as leader, begins to formulate a plan. His initial goal is not combat, but rather to attempt to convince Eren to stop the Rumbling through peaceful means. Only if this attempt fails does he consider using his colossal Titan's power as a last resort against the founding Titan. The group agrees, believing that Eren in some way still wants to be stopped, since he has not removed their ability to transform into Titans. This situation makes them feel the same weight Reiner carried in the past, betraying their own comrades in the name of a mission. Reiner even tells Connie they need to accept reality, but assures he will always be at his side. Despite the emotional burden, Armin insists on attempting dialogue with Eren. However, before they can act, Eren intervenes and transports them to the paths. There, the group pleads for him to stop the destruction. In response, Eren appears in his childlike form, accompanied by Ymir, and states that the rumbling will never be stopped. The only way to end it would be to kill him. Inside the paths, Armin finds himself confused, looking at his own body and unable to understand how he is still alive. Beside him appears Zeke, who explains that Eren understood something that not even Ymir could liberate in 2,000 years, and that is why he united with her. Zeke, skeptical, believes nothing has meaning since everything ends in death. Armin, however, maintains his faith. For him, even the briefest moments of life hold value. This view makes Zeke recall his games of baseball with Cassava and realize those memories had meaning. Inspired, he decides to help Armin, gathering the strength of former Titan holders, such as Cassava, Grisha, Kruger, the Galliard brothers, and even Ymir's projections. All of them break free from the Founder's control and begin aiding in the fight against the Titan copies. Shortly after, Zeke appears inside Eren's Titan and offers Levi the chance to kill him. Admiring the beauty of the day, Zeke surrenders to his fate, and Levi decapitates him. This severs Eren's connection to the rumbling. Next, Jean manages to trigger the explosives attached to the founding Titan's neck, tearing off its head. But from the wound emerges a luminous centipede-like creature, attempting to reconnect the head to Eren's body. Armin is saved and then uses his colossal Titan's power to confront Eren, separating the creature known as the source of all organic matter from inside Eren's nape. At the same time, Falco, flying toward the Liberio refugees, sees the reunion interrupted when the centipede transforms the nearby Eldians into pure Titans, including Jean, Connie, and Gaby. Reiner, Annie, and Pekig join forces to combat both these new Titans and the centipede itself, preventing it from reconnecting to Eren. Even so, Eren manages to return in his founding Titan form and engages in direct combat against Armin. At the height of the battle, Levi and Mikasa realize that only they can bring the fight to a definitive end. Levi opens the way by launching a thunder spear into Eren's Titans, allowing Mikasa to enter and decapitate him. With this, Ymir is finally freed from her imprisonment in the paths. Eren's fall causes both her and all Titan power in the world to disappear, permanently transforming the Eldians into humans. After his death, Armin has a final conversation with Eren. In it, Eren reveals the reasons for his choices, explaining how he lived with the duality of being the founding Titan and the attack Titan. He admits that approximately 80% of the world's population was exterminated by the rumbling, and that he sought alternatives to avoid this fate, but found no other way. In the end, he accepted the burden to ensure his friends would be seen as heroes and could live full and long lives. This conversation, however, had taken place much earlier, its memories blocked by Eren until his death. When the truth comes to light, everyone cries, understanding that despite everything, Eren always wanted to protect them. Pieck laments not having had the chance to speak with him, something she had always wanted. Gradually, each finds consolation. Gabi runs to embrace Falco. Reiner tells his mother he has lost the Titan power, which fills her with joy. Annie reunites with her father and promises never to leave him again. Jean and Connie are moved to see Sasha's spirit, while Levi finds his fallen former comrades and pays them a final tribute with the Survey Corps salute. Finally, Armin addresses Marley's commander, declaring that it was he who killed Eren and that the massacre has come to an end. In the distance, Mikasa sees Ymir's spirit. Understanding that Eren's mission was complete, Ymir finds rest at last. Mikasa, in silence, decides to bring Eren's head back to Paradise Island to bury him. Following Eren Yeager's fall, the Alliance was globally recognized as the group that defeated the one responsible for the mass extermination and saved humanity. 3 years later, the world was still recovering from the trauma, with 80% of the population exterminated by the rumbling. In Paradis, the Jaegerists had taken control of the army and were growing in strength, anticipating a possible confrontation with other nations. Meanwhile, the Alliance's survivors came to act as ambassadors, seeking to establish peace negotiations between Paradis and the rest of the world, though the fear of a Jaegerist attack was ever present. During this period, the mood among them still preserved light moments. Jean, for example, was the target of jokes from Pike, Reiner, and Connie, who mocked his horse face while he tried to fix his hair. Mikasa, for her part, followed a more solitary path. She had buried Eren's head at the foot of a tree, the same tree that marked the beginning of the story, and continued to visit his grave throughout the rest of her life. As the years passed, new generations were born and lived in peace. However, the cycle of war returned. In the distant future, Paradis was bombed and completely destroyed. Time caused nature to reclaim the place, erasing the traces of civilization. In this setting, a boy accompanied by his dog found the great tree beneath which Mikasa had buried Eren, now enormous and imposing, resembling the same ancestral tree linked to the origin of the Titan powers. This recap took a great deal of work to summarize, record, and edit, but the work was worth it because I am a true fan of Attack on Titan. Leave a like, a hyper, and a comment to help the video reach more people. On screen, there are 2 more recaps. I'll see you there.